Chapter 707. Luyang Town. The only way to the mighty Sword Valley was to pass through a bustling town under the protection of the Luyang sect. The people of the Sword World were bloodthirsty and warlike. Even in the surroundings of such a town, there were still many battles, and there were also battles within the town. Even the guards of the town could not stop the spirit cultivators who were determined to fight. They could only watch and not meddle in other people's business. There were many corpses on the road outside Luyang Town, some old and some new. Most of them had been bitten to the point of being unrecognizable by the nearby fierce beasts, and the ground was also full of potholes, extremely uneven. When Su-yun walked towards Luyang Town, the 2 men and 1 woman he met at the tea-house outside the Evil Sword Forest were also walking towards him. Along the way, he could see many spirit cultivators, and Luyang Town usually did not have so many people gathered there. From this, it could be seen that these people were all here for the mighty Sword Valley's Heroes' Sword Discourse. It was said that the Heroes' Sword Discourse would be held in 10 days. From here to the mighty Sword Valley, it would take 5 days to get there, so there was no rush. Su-yun wandered around Luyang Town and went to the tavern in town to see if he could get any useful information. The tavern and tea-house had always been a gathering place for the spirit cultivator. People did not have high requirements for food, but this wine was the eternal theme. Drunken Lair was the largest tavern in Luyang Town. The interior of the tavern was not luxurious, but rather simple. Moreover, the entrance was tattered, making it look a little shabby. However, this tavern was as crowded as a marketplace, with a sea of people, and was bustling with activity. Su-yun walked in by himself, and the 2 men and 1 woman from before also entered. "Sir, are you alone? What wine do you need?" "The wine in this shop is all divine wine. Not only can drinking it raise one's cultivation, it can also clear one's mind, strengthen one's tendons, strengthen one's profound chi, and so on. There are so many benefits." A waiter ran over and boasted to Su-yun. Su-yun understood this. Previously, at the tea-house, the tea he drank only accelerated the recovery of the profound chi. Other than that, it had no other use, and it was extremely expensive, costing him tens of thousands of profound coin. This time, he was not fooled, and casually ordered a pot of wine, and drank by himself. Although it did not increase his cultivation by much, the taste of the wine was indeed very intoxicating. The fragrance of the wine rippled inside and outside the tavern, leaving an endless aftertaste. Plop! At this moment, a muffled sound came from the entrance of the tavern. A man who was over 2 meters tall and had a body like a bear walked in with a huge sword on his back. The man had a bald head, a stocky build, and a fierce-looking face. His profound energy was so strong that it was suffocating. The moment he appeared, the noisy tavern immediately fell silent. Pairs of eyes involuntarily gathered on him. The entrance of this person caused the originally relaxed and cheerful tavern to become somewhat solemn. The waiter was a little confused, but he had seen this kind of situation many times, so he hurriedly rushed to the back hall to look for the shopkeeper. It was obvious that he had come with ill intentions. Otherwise, he would not have released such a powerful, profound energy. The man's eyes swept across the tavern, then he took heavy steps and arrived in front of a table. There were only 2 people sitting at the table, a man and a woman. The man was dressed in a colorful blade master robe, with a feathered crown on his head. He had a noble temperament, like a young master, but he did not carry a sword. There was only an emerald green desolator on the table, and he was drinking by himself. Sitting opposite him was a young lady with delicate features, red lips, and white teeth. The lady was dressed in pink, and her skin was fair. She did not drink, and only sat there obediently, quietly watching the man in front of her drink. Beside her, there was a red paper fan leaning against the chair. 1 person, 1 umbrella. It was extremely harmonious and natural. Seeing the burly man arrive, the man's hand that was about to raise the cup to his mouth suddenly froze. "I don't like to be disturbed when I'm drinking," the man said indifferently, then drank the wine in his cup in one gulp and poured it again. Unexpectedly, before he could fill the cup, the burly man had already extended his hand over, grabbed the man's wine pot, and slammed it onto the table. Clang! The iron palm instantly shattered the wine pot and the table into pieces. The things on the table were scattered all over the ground, including the man's desolator. The entire tavern was silent. Everyone turned their heads to look at this scene. This time, no one said anything, and the atmosphere was rather solemn. The burly man stepped on the stool beside him, looked at the man with a sinister face, and growled. "You are Lu Xiao, rank 17th on the heroic sword list, right? My name is Zhong Kuang. My fighting strength is 90,000, and I am at the 7th stage of the Sky Spirit Master. I heard that in this year's hero competition, the experts of the heroic sword list can directly take a look at the clear sky holy robe. My heart is itching, I want to see my treasure earlier. As long as I defeat you, I can obtain the throne of the 17th rank of the heroic sword list. Seeing what my treasure looks like, I can also borrow you to spread my name, Zhong Kuang. So, Lu Xiao, make your move. I will beat you to the ground here." With that, the man took off the great sword on his back, and stabbed it into the ground. Dong! The entire tavern trembled. The heavy sword smashed the ground into pieces. Some of the fellows who didn't sit properly were thrown off their chairs. They were in a sorry state, and the scene was rather chaotic. The man called Lu Xiao raised his sword eyes and glanced at the extremely arrogant man in front of him. However, he was not angry at all, and said indifferently, "Your name is Zhong Kuang? That's right. I think you should change your name to Zhong Xia." Lu Xiao reached out to pick up the desolator on the ground, and patted the dust off it. "Moreover, we can't fight. Stinking brat, you dare to look down on me!" Zhong Kuang was immediately enraged, and directly extended his hand to grab Lu Xiao. However, before his hand could even touch Lu Xiao, a silent force suddenly shot out from the back hall door and directly struck Zhong Kuang's majestic body. His body quickly cracked, and like a collapsing mountain, he quickly collapsed. In just a few seconds, Zhong Kuang's entire body died, and his soul overflowed. One move to kill. Seeing this scene, the surrounding customers were all shocked. One by one, they stood up in panic, and some of them had already escaped from the tavern. Su Yun's face congealed. He immediately looked towards the back hall of the tavern, only to hear a cold shout coming from the back hall. "What kind of cat or dog dares to cause trouble here? Don't you know how to read the rules on the wall of this shop? I don't care who you are. Outside the shop, I don't care if you kill until the sky is dark, but inside the shop, if you dare to cause trouble and fight, you will not be let off lightly." A cold voice rang out, and a slightly plump middle-aged man, accompanied by two waiters, walked out. Although this person was slightly plump, his expression was extremely serious. His hair was slightly white, and his eyes were deep and dignified. As soon as he appeared, the people present immediately started whispering to each other. "Is this the shopkeeper of Drunken Fragrance? I never thought that the shopkeeper would finally show himself. So strong. I've heard that this shopkeeper has been hiding his strength, but today I've finally seen it for myself. Yeah, it's a good thing those guys who are quarreling here didn't make a move otherwise. TSK, TSK, TSK. The scene was boiling. Su Yun quietly sized up the shopkeeper, and realized that his chi was stable, like an ancient well, incomparably deep, and difficult to see the bottom. He was afraid that even if his cultivation was not at the level of the Spirit Emperor, he was close. "Laifu, go clean up," the shopkeeper said in a deep voice. "Yes, shopkeeper," a waiter said, and then ran to clean up the burly man's dismembered corpse. "Everyone, please continue drinking. I hope that all of you will have a good time in this shop." The shopkeeper threw down these words indifferently and did not say anything else. He turned around and was about to leave. "Shopkeeper, I was frightened in your shop. Shouldn't you compensate me?" Just then, Lu Xiao, who was sitting at the side, suddenly spoke. His voice was clear and bright, and everyone in the tavern could hear him clearly. The shopkeeper, who was about to leave, immediately stopped in his tracks. Shock was written all over everyone's faces. The shopkeeper had only used one move to kill Zhong Kuang. Although it was only one move, it was enough to declare his powerful strength to the crowd. Who wouldn't be afraid of such a strong expert? But this Lu Xiao did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. To actually say such words, what was he going to do? The woman gently stood up and took out a pink scarf from the inside of her waist. She raised her slender hands and wiped the sawdust off Lu Xiao's face. Sir, it is not our wish for such a thing to happen. How about this, our guests' wine money? How about it? The shopkeeper said indifferently. In fact, this kind of thing was extremely common in the sword world. The people of the sword world loved to fight, and there would be challenges everywhere. However, Lu Xiao did not seem to buy it. He sized up the desolator in his hand, and said indifferently, I do not lack this bit of wine money. The shopkeeper's eyebrows slightly twitched. What do you want, sir? I heard that drunken fragrance shopkeeper's drunken sword is unstoppable in the world. This time, I am going to the mighty sword valley for the sake of the hero's sword, but after passing through here, I can't help but ask the shopkeeper for advice and experience the rumored might of the drunken sword. I hope that the shopkeeper can fulfill this small wish of mine. Lu Xiao said indifferently, but as he spoke, he did not even look at the shopkeeper. The atmosphere in the tavern became heavy. Some people saw that the situation was not good and immediately left, leaving behind a portion of them to watch the show. It seemed that Lu Xiao did not come here to drink for no reason, but for the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was silent for a moment, then walked over. He stood in front of Lu Xiao and the lady, Qin Hong San, sized them up, and then said indifferently, I have already sealed my sword. If the two of you are here to drink, I welcome you at any time. If the two of you are here to compete in swords, I'm afraid you have come to the wrong place. With that, the shopkeeper gestured for them to leave and said indifferently, You two, please leave. This shop will not do business with you two today. Lu Xiao did not say anything, and quietly looked at the desolator in his hand. No one knew what he was thinking, but everyone in the tavern could see that his hand, which was caressing the desolator, had already started to tighten. Waves of killing intent rose. The shopkeeper obviously noticed the change in Lu Xiao, and his face froze. A faint light flashed past. Lu Xiao made his move. Chapter 708. Su Yun's line of sight enlarged as he stared at Lu Xiao. He suddenly grabbed onto the desolator and pulled it out. He actually pulled out an extremely thin sword from the desolator. The moment the sword was unsheathed, it went straight for the head of the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper's movements were quick and sharp. He bent his upper body backwards and directly dodged Xiao Jian's attack. Following that, he released a profound qi, forcing Qin Hong San and Lu Xiao, who were beside him, to retreat a few meters. The two of them jumped back a few meters, and the surroundings of the tavern were also shattered by the shopkeeper's profound qi, causing the already dilapidated tavern to become a mess. Su Yun took the wine jug and ran out of the tavern. He found an empty space and drank while watching the two of them fight. There were many people like him who joined in the fun, and none of them paid for the wine. They just took the wine jug and drank by themselves, looking very satisfied. Lu Xiao and the shopkeeper rushed out of the tavern and started fighting on the street. Passers-by would occasionally stop to watch the battle, but those who had matters to attend to would leave. There were no guards to stop them, and no one was surprised. It was as if everything was a normal phenomenon. Seeing that, Su Yun felt that the sword world was truly a valiant place. The shopkeeper pulled out the belt on his waist and pulled it off. It spun around in his hand and shone brightly. It was a soft sword. Lu Xiao's sword was like a poisonous bee, ruthless and sharp. He was not like the other spirit cultivators who used swords, cutting, chopping, hacking, and stabbing. He only used one move, stab. He did not make a move easily, and was always dodging around the shopkeeper, looking for an opportunity. But once he made a move, the sword would shake the heavens and the earth, and the profound chi on Xiao Jian would be released as well, smashing straight into the ground, like a meteor falling. It was extremely terrifying. The entire street had been smashed into smithereens by Lu Xiao. It was a complete mess. However, although Lu Xiao's attacks were swift and fierce, he was unable to touch the shopkeeper in the slightest. At this moment, his body was like the whip-like sword in his hand, swaying left and right, slippery like a loach. No matter how terrifying Lu Xiao's attack was, he was able to avoid it without any danger. Every time the sword was about to pierce through his body, he would always intentionally or unintentionally dodge to the side. Looking at the shopkeeper's expression, he was calm, without the slightest bit of panic. His steps were messy but orderly, unorganized but not panicked, like a drunk person, but not like one. It was really strange. At this point, everyone knew that the shopkeeper's cultivation was probably a level higher than Lu Xiao's. Puchi. Suddenly, a crisp sound rang out. 2 sword marks suddenly appeared on Lu Xiao's shoulders. Then, 2 streaks of sword chi slashed at his shoulders. The brilliant sword intent rippled like a flood, forcing everyone on the street to retreat. Lu Xiao's expression became solemn. He immediately took half a step back. The profound energy in his body was activated. The treasure robe on his body immediately reacted. A circle of light erupted from the clothes. The sword chi that was cutting towards him hit the treasure robe, immediately rippling and dispersing, completely blocked. Imperial equipment. From the looks of it, it's probably not low. The scene was in an uproar. The drunken sword truly lives up to its name. This movement technique and the trajectory of the sword are simply impossible to guard against. However, that Lu Xiao is not an ordinary person either. I can see that most of the magic treasure on his body are extraordinary treasures. That's right. Although Lu Xiao's cultivation is not as good as the shopkeeper's, this magic treasure might be able to make up for the difference. Everyone was discussing. Drunken sword Xiao Jian? Su Yun's eyes were like torches. He carefully watched the battle between Lu Xiao and the shopkeeper. The battle between the two of them was not considered huge. Neither of them used any terrifying moves that could destroy a mountain or evaporate the sea in anger. Instead, they used their moves against each other. The shopkeeper was extremely conservative, focusing on defense, while Lu Xiao continued to attack. However, the shopkeeper and Lu Xiao were not blindly defending and attacking. Lu Xiao continued to circle around the shopkeeper. His speed was extremely fast, to the point where even his afterimages could not be seen. One could only see a burst of strong wind rippling from the other side. Every time he detected a flaw, he would stab forward with his sword. Xiao Jian carried an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth. However, the shopkeeper easily dodged, and every time he successfully dodged Lu Xiao's attack, the shopkeeper would retaliate with a sword strike. If not for the fact that the imperial equipment on Lu Xiao's body was not of a low grade, he would have died long ago. Neither of them were injured, but Lu Xiao's profound qi consumption was far greater than the shopkeeper's. It was obvious who was stronger and who was weaker. If this goes on, Lu Xiao will definitely lose. He's even ranked 17th on the heroic sword list. Could it be that he only has this much ability? This is too disappointing. You can't say that. This shopkeeper was also an all-powerful figure back then. Haven't you heard of Drunken Sword Kuei? That's also a member of the heroic sword list. But after Drunken Sword was defeated and retired, no one knew about it. Many people thought that he was dead, but who would have thought that he would actually run here and open a tavern? Oh? He's Kuei. Bang. Suddenly, an explosion sounded out in the middle of the two fighting. The shopkeeper Kuei was sent flying backwards. His body was engulfed by a series of vacuum explosions in the air, and when he fell to the ground, the profound qi in his body was completely shattered. What's going on? Everyone exclaimed. Their eyes had been staring at the two of them, but when Kuei was suddenly attacked, they did not notice how Lu Xiao attacked. Only Su Yun had a look of disgust and disdain in his eyes. He did not look at Lu Xiao and Kuei, but focused his attention on the woman standing not far away from them, Qin Hong San. Under the drunken sword of the shopkeeper, Lu Xiao could not do anything to him. As time passed, not only did Lu Xiao's profound qi consumption increase, Kuei also gradually grasped Lu Xiao's sword move. If this continued, Lu Xiao would not be able to do anything to Kuei. As for Kuei, he would gradually increase the distance between the two of them, slowly gaining the upper hand, killing Lu Xiao and winning this duel. The difference between Lu Xiao and Kuei's sword skills and fighting techniques was not just a little bit. Even if he was calm now, it was impossible for him to defeat Kuei. Therefore, Qin Hong San made his move. Her attack was extremely secretive, so secretive that almost everyone present, including Su Yun, did not know that she had made her move. However, there was one thing that allowed Su Yun to know that she had already made her move. That was, 2 sword scars had appeared on Kuei's body. These sword marks were not made by stabbing, but by cutting. Although the profound qi was very similar to Lu Xiao's, it was not Lu Xiao's move. It was impossible for Lu Xiao to cut out these 2 sword scars, and he did not have the chance either. Su Yun stared at Qin Hong San, only to see that the pink paper fan had already been opened, and the handle of the umbrella was slightly opened, revealing a cold light, and bits of killing intent filled the air. She stood quietly at the side, holding on to her paper fan as she looked at Kuei. Her eyes were as deep as 2 wells. Manager Kuei hurriedly stood up. He turned his head to look at Qin Hong San, frowning. It was likely that he had also sensed Qin Hong San's attack, but the surrounding onlookers all thought that this move was done by Lu Xiao. "What do you mean by this?" Manager Kuei said in a low voice. However, Lu Xiao and Qin Hong San did not have any intention of explaining. Lu Xiao raised his sword and attacked again. It was extremely forceful, and did not give Kuei a chance to catch his breath. With this imperial equipment, it would be extremely difficult for Manager Kuei to kill Lu Xiao with just the drunken sword, and if he could not kill Lu Xiao, with Qin Hong San helping him from the side, he would definitely lose. Kuei relied on the illusory and formless drunken sword to dodge and attack, but after a few sword strikes, he was unable to break through, and on the contrary, Lu Xiao took the opportunity to strike his waist, causing a large piece of meat to disappear from the profound qi. He staggered backwards, blood spilling all over the ground. He was in a sorry state. Seeing that, a strange smile appeared on Lu Xiao's face. Sword Worlds duels are usually one-on-one. No one is allowed to interfere. Once they find out who interferes with the duel, they will be killed. Manager Kuei said in a deep voice. However, the world doesn't know that we are 2 against 1. Lu Xiao lowered his voice and laughed softly. His voice was so soft that only the 2 of them could hear him. Hearing that, the shopkeeper snorted. Has the heroic sword list fallen? Even people like you can be ranked on the heroic sword list. Cut the crap. If I kill you, my fighting strength will be ranked even higher in the sword world, and the benefits will be endless. Isn't the fighting in the sword world done by all means? With that said, Lu Xiao stabbed forward with Xiao Jian again. The dark green Xiao Jian was like a swaying venomous snake, cold and swift. He had always thought that although the people of the sword world loved to fight and kill, they would at least adhere to their principles and abide by the way of the sword. From the looks of it today, that was not the case. Qin Hong San was ranked 18th on the heroic sword list. Kuei's drunken sword was naturally not afraid of Lu Xiao, but against these 2, he had no chance of winning. With Qin Hong San's help from the side, Lu Xiao gained the upper hand. Kuei knew that if this continued, he would definitely die. He turned his head and stared at the 2 waiters standing at the entrance of the inn and shouted in a low voice, "Laifu Laishi, quickly attack and kill Lu Xiao with me." When the 2 waiters heard this, they did not move. Instead, their faces were filled with hesitation. "Shopkeeper, this is an open and above-board duel. If this lowly one were to make a move, according to the rules of the sword world, this lowly one would probably be killed on the spot by the others. This lowly one doesn't dare. They have already broken the rules. What are you afraid of?" "But where did they break it?" Lai Fu was puzzled. Seeing this, the shopkeeper frowned. He knew that it was impossible to ask for help. The only thing he could do now was to preserve his life. Immediately, the shopkeeper turned around, wanting to escape to avoid fighting with Lu Xiao. But this escape of his had truly violated the rules of the sword world's fighting. Once the two of them fought, they would not rest until one of them died. Anyone who escaped would be regarded as a defeated enemy and could be killed at will. In an instant, Qin Hong San made his move. She and Lu Xiao, one on the left and one on the right, closed in on the shopkeeper. The pink umbrella opened up in the air, and a gust of wind swept out from within. The handle of the umbrella exploded with a cold aura, and an umbrella sword that was even thinner than Xiao Jian was taken out, like a cold phoenix spreading its wings. It swept towards Kuei. Kuei was injured, sensing Qin Hong San's sudden attack. His expression changed drastically. He wanted to urge his magic treasure to block, but the cold qi attacked. His body quickly condensed into a layer of frost, and in a moment, his wife turned into an ice sculpture and fell to the ground. When it touched the ground, the coldness on the ice sculpture even covered the entire street with frost. Qin Hong San rushed over, and with a slash of his sword, Manager Kuei's ice sculpture immediately shattered into pieces, scattering all over the ground. The scene was in an uproar. Chapter 709. Lu Xiao was ranked 17th on the heroic sword list, and Qin Hong San was ranked 18th. Logically speaking, Qin Hong San's strength should be far lower than Lu Xiao's, but from Su Yun's point of view, there was a mistake in the rankings. Although Qin Hong San had only used 2 moves, from these 2 moves, her strength was much higher than Lu Xiao's. If Qin Hong San were to fight with the shopkeeper, Kuei would not be a match for Qin Hong San. As soon as Kuei died, the lively scene immediately quietened down. Everyone started to leave. No one was sad for Kuei's death, and no one exclaimed in surprise. Regarding this, everyone thought that it was extremely normal. Dying in a duel was the most common thing in the sword world. Despicable. 2 against 1, you really don't deserve to be a swordsman. Just as Su Yun was about to leave, an indignant voice came from the side. Su Yun looked over. It was the 2 men and 1 woman. The one who spoke was the woman. "Meng Qian, lower your voice. Don't let that Lu Xiao hear you. Although they are fighting 2 against 1, their strength is not simple. We are definitely not their match." The young man, Zhong Bai, said in a low voice. "I don't think they're here to challenge us at all. They're here to see Manager Kuei's drunken swordsmanship," Lu Gu said indignantly. "So what? We can't change anything. No matter what, these 2 people must be careful. If they are also here to participate in the hero tournament, then we will be in trouble." Zhong Bai's face was filled with worry. "What are you afraid of? If they also come to spar, I'll let them have a taste of the prowess of my 30,000 caddies' sword art." Lu Gu snorted. "Don't underestimate him. He is after all an expert on the heroic sword list. No matter what methods he uses, no one will be able to restrain him. Just this imperial equipment alone is not something we can easily deal with." Zhong Bai whispered. Lu Gu snorted and didn't say anything else. The 3 continued on their way. The Drunken Fragrance Tavern had also become deserted because of Kuei's death. In the sword world, no one would care about the death of a duel, and the victor would not be punished. This was the rule here, unless you rejected the duel from the very beginning. What happened in the small town also gave Su Yun a new view of the sword world. This world was far crueler than the ultimate martial world. After finishing the wine in the pot, Su Yun continued on his journey. When they left the town, they saw the people who came out of the tavern. Everyone was walking on the same path, heading in the same direction. It was just that everyone intentionally kept their distance from each other and guarded against each other. If they were from the same direction, then their goals would be the same. In this way, they were all competitors. Su Yun slowly took out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword from the sword sheath and flew at a low altitude, his eyes constantly observing his surroundings. The closest group to him was a small group, about 2 kilometers away, with 5 people, but they were whispering to each other and did not notice him. After walking for 2 hours, they could already see corpses that had just died not long ago. Traces of fighting were all over the road, and there were even some spirit cultivator fighting. People avoided them as much as they could and did not linger. After advancing for another hour, they arrived at a mountain top. All the spirit cultivators that were heading towards the mighty Sword Valley stopped. At that moment there were many spirit cultivators standing on top of the mountain. All of them were dressed in the same light blue robes, with swords hanging from their waists. Looking over, there were close to 1,000 people. All of them were at least at the first stage of the Sky Spirit Master. Seeing this formation that was like an army, all the spirit cultivators that were rushing over stopped in their tracks and looked into the distance. Su Yun also felt that something was amiss. He immediately stopped in his tracks and scurried to the front of a large boulder, looking over. Lu Xiao and Qin Hong San, who were walking the fastest, were already heading towards the top of the mountain. The people on the mountain noticed that something was amiss and immediately gathered together. When the two of them approached, these people actually pulled out their swords without any explanation and pointed them at the two of them. "Which sect are you from?" Lu Xiao raised his head, glanced at these people, and said indifferently, "We are from the barbarian Quicksand." A man with bare arms and a bald head walked out from the crowd. He was only wearing a pair of light blue pants, revealing his muscular body. In his hand was a long sword that looked like the sharp teeth of a fierce tiger, and the most eye-catching thing was that his right eye was tightly shut. A sword mark ran from his upper eyelid to his lower eyelid, and a strange light leaked out from the crack of his eye, as if he was blind in this eye, and for some reason, he was unable to report back. When Lu Xiao saw who it was, he immediately laughed. "I was wondering who it was, so it's the one-eyed barbarian sword of man Lu Xiao. Sorry. With that, he cupped his fist. The one-eyed barbarian's sword returned the greeting expressionlessly and said in a rough voice, "Who are you?" "I am Lu Xiao, and this is my dual cultivation partner, Qin Hong San," Lu Xiao said. "Lu Xiao? Qin Hong San? I've heard of it. The two of you are experts on the heroic sword list." The one-eyed barbarian sword's face turned serious. "May I ask why your sect has gathered so many disciples here?" Lu Xiao asked. "It's just for the sake of the safety of the mighty Sword Valley," the one-eyed barbarian sword said in a rough voice. "A few days ago, the mighty Sword Valley was attacked by thieves, the clear sky holy robe was destroyed, and countless people from the mighty Sword Valley were killed or injured. For this reason, my sect master sent us to seal off this place, and strictly watch over any spirit cultivator who wants to go to the mighty Sword Valley. In this hero's sword discourse, the clear sky holy robe will be the object of the sword discourse, and those thieves will definitely come again. Therefore, everyone who wants to go to the mighty Sword Valley must pass our test before they can move forward. If they are not willing to accept our test, they must be peeking at the holy robe." Hearing that, Lu Xiao's eyebrows twitched. "So that's how it is. Does the mighty Sword Valley Master know what your sect has done?" The one-eyed barbarian sword's expression changed slightly as he hesitated for a moment. "What's the difference between knowing and not knowing? This is for the sake of the mighty Sword Valley." Hearing that, Lu Xiao immediately understood. This was just man Lu Xiao acting on his own. "Then what kind of test does your sect have?" The one-eyed barbarian sword turned his head and signaled the people behind him with his eyes. Immediately, a disciple walked forward quickly and took out a porcelain bottle from the pouch at his waist. He poured out 2 pills from it and handed them to the 2 of them. This time, he will definitely bring the parts of the clear sky holy robe to snatch the holy robe. Therefore, my sect master has refined this kind of perception pill. If the person who consumes this pill does not have any parts on him, he will not have any reaction, and once he has a part, he will die on the spot, revealing his true form. If the 2 of you dare to consume this pill and are fine, then you can pass. If you are not willing to consume it, then you can either leave or be killed by us. With that said, Lu Zhao's eyes slightly moved. This pill was pitch black and round, only the size of an eyeball. It gave off a strange smell, and it was unknown what it was refined from. How do I know if this pill is poisonous? Although I, Man Lu Sha, am not a big sect, I do not dare to poison people in broad daylight. This is an extremely despicable thing. If I were to harm your lives, wouldn't I, Man Lu Sha, become enemies with the entire sword world? How will we stand in the sword world in the future? If you do not believe me, then leave. We will not force you. The one-eyed barbarian sword snorted. Hearing that, Lu Shao felt that it made sense. If this pill was poisonous and he died under it, how could Man Lu Sha be at ease? They shouldn't be that stupid. Immediately, Lu Shao was about to swallow the pill. But just as he was about to make his move, a soft hand reached out from the side and gently took his pill. It was Qin Hong San. "Husband, let me feed you," Qin Hong San said gently. Lu Shao was startled, but when he saw the flash of light in Qin Hong San's eyes, he understood something. He nodded his head, opened his mouth, and placed the pill into his mouth. "Swallow." Qin Hong San did not hesitate and placed the pill into Tan Tan's mouth. The 2 of them used the medicine and stood in place. The one-eyed barbarian sword carefully sized up the 2 of them. Only then did he wave his hand and let the 2 of them leave. When the others saw this, they all became suspicious. Seeing Lu Shao and Lu Shao leave, they also let down their guard and went over. After understanding the rules of the barbarian flowing sand people, many people were furious and refused sternly. For no reason, how could he carelessly eat the medicine given by others? However, if they did not accept the pill and refused to let them go, then they would be worried. They did not dare to offend Man Lu Sha. People began to make their choice. Some people turned around and left, while others saw Lu Shao and Lu Shao swallow the pill and leave, so they did not suspect anything and took the pill. Su Yun looked closer and glanced at the pill. He felt that this matter was more or less strange. What? It's obvious that you guys don't want us to participate in the hero's discussion of the sword, that's why you guys deliberately did this. That's right, you Man Lu Sha are too much of a bully. I will definitely tell the world about this. Some people were filled with righteous indignation and shouted loudly. If any of you are unconvinced, I, the one-eyed barbarian sword, am willing to accept the challenge. The one-eyed barbarian sword raised his toothed sword and snorted at these people. As soon as he said this, no one dared to shout anymore. What a joke! The one-eyed barbarian sword was an expert who had been famous for a long time. It was said that his swordsmanship was extremely close to the experts on the heroic sword list. How could he be his match? However, if he didn't eat the pill, he wouldn't be able to pass. There were nearly 1,000 experts from the barbarian flowing sand here. Su Yun heaved a sigh of relief. He received the pill from a disciple of the barbarian flowing sand and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, his tightly furrowed brows relaxed. Immediately, without saying a word, he swallowed the pill. You can go now." The one-eyed barbarian sword nodded and said to Su Yun. Su Yun cupped his fists, without saying a word. He quickly passed through the crowd and rushed towards the mighty Sword Valley. Seeing that more and more people were heading towards the mighty Sword Valley, those who were still hesitating immediately became anxious. All of them did not care about anything else as they swallowed their pills and moved forward. For the sake of the clear sky holy robe, these people's eyes were all red with anxiety. Even though most of the people here were not strong, under the temptation of treasures, even an ant would muster up the courage to fight for it. What drove them was not the so-called desire to improve, but the heart of greed. Chapter 7:10. After passing through the obstruction of the Sandman, Su Yun quickly rushed forward for a distance, then hurriedly stopped and sat cross-legged on the ground, meditating and circulating his energy. However, what surprised him was that on the two rocks in the distance, Lu Xiao and Qin Hongfan, who had left earlier, were actually sitting cross-legged and recuperating. The two of them connected their palms and helped each other, activating the profound qi, causing their bodies to emit green smoke. It was extremely mystical. In fact, the pill given by the one-eyed barbarian sword was not a pill used to test the components, but a poison that was worthy of its name. However, the poison was weak and could not kill. It could even be said that there were no poisonous ingredients on the surface, and many people were unable to detect it. Once it was swallowed, it would immediately hide itself, and after a period of time, the medicinal effect would seep into every part of a person's body, and would quickly paralyze all of a person's qi meridian. In other words, once the pill took effect, it would immediately turn a spirit cultivator into an ordinary person. Of course, that was only for existences with weak cultivations. For experts, they would not lose all of their cultivation in a short period of time, but it would still affect them. If the effects of the pill were to take effect during the sword discourse competition, the consequences would be unimaginable. In the end, the goal of the Sandman was still for the sake of the hero. As long as they gave this pill to everyone who went to the Venerable Sword Valley, it would be equivalent to crippling one potential threat after another. Because it was just paralysis and would not die, the barbarian quicksand people would not bear much responsibility. At most, they would have a bad reputation, but if they could use this reputation to exchange for the clear sky holy robe, it would be worth it. However, the Sandman had underestimated the people of the world. Not everyone would fall for this trick. Su Yun heaved a sigh of relief, patted his robe, then stood up and continued to walk forward. All the poison in his body had been forced out. However, Lu Xiao and Qin Hongfan were still recuperating. It seemed that it was good to have a strong Xian energy. Su Yun was pleased with himself. His footsteps quickened, his sword unsheathed and landed in the sky. He stepped on the sword sheath, transforming into a rainbow that pierced through the horizon. Whiz! The sound of something tearing through the air rang out. Lu Xiao and Qin Hongfan, who were still recuperating, immediately opened their eyes and looked at the sky. Doesn't this person need to adjust his breathing? Looks like he's just an ordinary person. A hint of disdain appeared at the corner of Lu Xiao's mouth. You're wrong. Qin Hongsan shook his head. This person is powerful, much more powerful than me. LV Zhao's mouth stiffened. What do you mean? He took the poison later than us, but he had already used his power to force out all of the poison. If that's the case, then his profound strength must be deeper than ours. The poison has been forced out? How so fast? Perhaps he is relying on magic treasures. Lu Xiao was somewhat unconvinced. Qin Hongfan remained silent. After a while, the smoke on their bodies stopped. They got up and continued on their way. After running for a few days, he finally arrived outside the mighty Sword Valley. Su Yun kept his sword and landed on the ground, looking into the distance. The mighty Sword Valley was located in the middle of two large mountains. On one side, it was surrounded by a green river. The mountains were filled with lush greenery, and the emerald trees and flowers covered the mountains and plains. It was extremely beautiful, and everywhere was filled with vitality. However, the flowers, grass, trees, mountains, and rivers here were not natural. They were all man-made. In the past, every blade of grass, tree, flower, and tree was a scenery that was pleasing to the eye. However, when there was a war, they would all become guards, protecting the entire mighty Sword Valley. The swords of the mighty Sword Valley paid particular attention to nature and unity. Their sword techniques were myriad and their might was boundless. However, many of the flowers, plants, and trees had been destroyed. It must have something to do with the turmoil in the mighty Sword Valley. At this moment, there were already disciples of the mighty Sword Valley outside the valley welcoming the heroes from all over the sword world. Regardless of whether they were big or small figures, they would all be warmly received. Fellow swordsmen, it's a pleasure to meet you. May I ask if you are here to participate in the Heroes' Sword Discourse competition? If that's the case, please come in. A disciple of the mighty Sword Valley walked towards Su Yun, cupped his fists and smiled. Thank you. Su Yun revealed a smile, and then, under the guidance of the disciple, he stepped into the mighty Sword Valley. The valley was already in a hubbub of voices. There were people everywhere along the way, but these people were of high and low status. The powerful people of the great sects and powers walked in the middle of the road, while the weak ones on the side gave way. As for the rogue cultivators or those with low cultivation, they walked on the two sides of the road. Su Yun couldn't help but mutter. Since he was afraid of these people, why did he still come to the mighty Sword Valley? Wasn't he here to fight for treasures? After muttering to himself, he followed behind a powerhouse, which attracted a wave of disdain. Su Yun came at the right time. The great assembly would officially begin tomorrow at noon, and everyone was gathered at the side of the sword discourse arena, waiting for the great assembly to begin. Su Yun was led to the side of the sword discourse arena, and found an empty place to sit down. When everyone arrived, other than those famous people who went to greet the Valley Master and the others, the rest of the nameless people were meditating by the side of the sword discourse arena, preparing for the great assembly tomorrow. There were many experts of the Suicide Valley standing around the sword discourse arena. They wore long swords and armor, standing like statues, looking very imposing. The Suicide Valley Master was an old man. His hair was white, and there were only a few strands of black hair. His face was full of wrinkles, and his body was thin. He wore a golden-green robe. He didn't have a sword on him, and he gave off a harmless feeling. After the Valley Master met with those people, he left the sword discourse arena and shook hands with the surrounding spirit cultivator. His attitude was very warm, and some people were flattered and excited. There were also some who thought themselves to be aloof and cold, but the Suicide Valley Master did not care at all. At this time, a disciple ran over from the entrance of the sword discourse arena. Valley Master, the people from Cloud Heavenly Palace have arrived. Hearing that, the Valley Master's eyebrows twitched, and he immediately walked out. The group left. Su Yun's expression did not change. He reached out to put on his hood, pulled on the brim of his hat, and buried his face in the haze. He never thought that even the Cloud Heavenly Palace would be alarmed by this hero's duel of the sword. He wondered who would be sent over this time. Su Yun sat in place for a moment, then saw a large group of people walking into the sword discourse arena from the entrance. The majority of them were disciples of the Cloud Heavenly Palace. They were still wearing that dazzling Blade Master uniform. All of them had long swords on their bodies. The men were handsome, the women were beautiful, and they were extremely eye-catching around the sword discourse arena. I never thought that the people from the Cloud Heavenly Palace would also come. This time, it's going to be a good show. Look, isn't the leader the Sword Lord? Why did the Heavenly Palace let him participate in the hero's duel of the sword this time? The Sword Lord's strength is not weak. If we don't let him come to the sword discourse arena, who else can come? That's true, but I wonder if the people from the sect of Dragon and Sword, who have always been at odds with the Cloud Heavenly Palace, will come. If they come, then there will be a good show to watch. Valley Master, the people from the sect of Dragon and Sword are here. Coincidentally, another shout came from the entrance. As the sound of this voice faded, the people who were whispering to each other were all stunned. The scene immediately became silent for a moment, and very quickly, the silence was broken by surprised voices. My mother, it really came as soon as I said it. The surrounding spirit cultivator all raised their heads and looked at the people from the cloud heavenly palace with the mentality of watching a show. When the people of the cloud heavenly palace heard the 3 words, sect of dragon and sword, their faces tensed up. No one had a good expression on their faces, but the Sword Lord seemed to be very calm. The Valley Master also seemed to feel rather awkward. He smiled, cupped his fists towards the Sword Lord, and led his men down to receive the people from the sect of dragon and sword. Not long after, a group of men and women wearing thin, wide-sleeved robes walked into the sword discourse arena. These people were not dressed as extravagantly as the people from the cloud heavenly palace. They were dressed very simply, regardless of whether it was men or women. They did not have many decorations on their bodies, only a uniform disciple's robe and a long sword, that was all. The leader was a young woman. She was not good-looking, and her hair was very short. However, on the right side of her face, there was a silver-white dragon imprint. She looked around and naturally saw the people from the cloud heavenly palace. However, she ignored them and directly greeted the leaders of the other sections. The group of people immediately responded. These people were chatting with each other, leaving the people of the cloud heavenly palace to the side. This made the usually arrogant and proud people of the cloud heavenly palace unhappy. People from the sect of dragon and sword, I never thought that you would come here today. Very good, very good. When the heroes discuss the sword later, we will also be able to properly ask for a few moves from you. Finally, on the side of the cloud heavenly palace, someone could no longer hold it in and shouted out provocatively. What is it? Hasn't your cloud heavenly palace lost enough? You still want to embarrass yourself here? Almost as soon as the people from the cloud heavenly palace finished speaking, the people from the sect of dragon and sword retorted. It seemed like the people from the sect of dragon and sword had been enduring it all this time. What did you say? The person who spoke from the cloud heavenly palace immediately blushed as he stood up and shouted. Do you want us to repeat ourselves? Humph, if you are not convinced, I am willing to accept your challenge. Don't try to be arrogant. If you want to fight, then let's fight. With that, the disciple of the sect of dragon and sword immediately pulled out his sword, looking like he was about to make a move. He was truly a warmonger, and the people of the cloud heavenly palace were not cowards either. In almost an instant all of them brandished their swords. When the rest of the people from the sect of dragon and sword saw this scene, how could they just stand by and watch? They all drew their swords as well. The two sides clashed with their swords, and the scene immediately became tense. The surrounding spirit cultivators all stood up and looked over. Everyone's gaze was attracted over. The mighty Sword Valley Lord naturally would not just stand by the side and watch. He hurriedly walked to the center of the two groups of people and shouted, Everyone, please calm down, calm down. This time I am holding a Hero's Sword Discourse Conference. If you have any grudges, please leave the valley to settle it, but here, I hope that everyone can give me some face and temporarily put away their weapons, okay? Li Xiang, put away your sword. At this moment the Sword Lord spoke. When the people of Cloud Heavenly Palace heard this, they had no choice but to withdraw their swords. Seeing that, the people from the sect of Dragon and Sword did not wish to make a big deal out of this, so they kept their swords. Both sides glared at each other. The atmosphere was extremely tense. The mighty Sword Valley Lord knew that these were two explosives and could not be placed together. He immediately began to pacify them. Not long later, the two sides were taken away by their respective leaders. The two groups of people sat in the north and south. Although they were far apart, the atmosphere was still driven by them. Chapter 7:11. With so many forces gathered in one place, there were naturally endless disputes. Although everyone came here for the same reason, everyone came in a hurry, and did not expect that their enemies would also gather here. When enemies met, their eyes would turn red, and this enemy had also become their competitor. How could they not cause trouble? However, it was a good thing that the Venerable Sword Valley was famous. No matter who caused trouble, They would not dare to cause a ruckus, and would have to look at their master's expression. In the end, this treasure was still in the hands of its master, unless they didn't want it anymore. More and more people arrived at the venerable Sword Valley. The sects had the most people, and rogue cultivators only occupied a quarter of the people. Time slowly passed, and the preparations for the mighty sword sect were almost done. At this moment, the vicinity of the gigantic sword discourse arena was already densely packed with people, almost to the point where there was no room for anyone to stand. Even the area beside Su Yun was occupied by the crowd. The blazing sun rose into the sky. The time had come. Thus, in this oppressive atmosphere, the first Heroes' Sword Discourse assembly held by the mighty Sword Valley using the clear sky holy robe as a lure began. The scene was bustling with noise and excitement. People of all sizes from various sects and clans had arrived. Although the clear sky holy robe's power had been greatly reduced due to its incomplete parts, it was still a rare treasure to the crowd. At noon, the Sword World's scorching sun was especially dazzling, and the entire land was illuminated with a golden light. Su Yun opened his eyes and looked at the Sword Discourse arena. The venerable Sword Valley's Valley Lord, accompanied by 2 disciples, walked up the Sword Discourse arena. He glanced at the scene, then turned his head and nodded to the person beside him. The disciple beside him understood and shouted down. Immediately, a person rushed up from below, and that person pressed a spar in front of the Valley Lord's feet. The spar fell to the ground and released a dense spatial aura. This aura spread out from the Sword Discourse arena and flew into the sky. It was unknown where it extended to, as if it was pulling something. Very quickly, the spatial aura was retracted and disappeared into the spar. That person immediately took down the spar and left the stage. Many of the surrounding people did not understand what was going on. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the sky. Everyone was shocked. They looked up and saw a golden statue falling from the sky, directly smashing into the center of the Sword Discourse arena. Dong! The statue fell to the ground and the sword platform shook. More than 10,000 pairs of eyes fell on the statue. They saw that the shining statue was wearing an especially imposing golden armor. Clear sky holy robe. Everyone's heart skipped a beat at the same time. The saint robe was magnificent, but it didn't lose its majesty. Its surface rippled with a supreme aura, and it actually gave people a strange feeling of worship. What kind of mystical holy garment was this? It was as thin as a light muslin and lightly stuck to the statue. It was constructed from golden threads as thin as hair. However, these golden threads did not have the cliché of gold. Instead, they inherited the dazzling brilliance of gold. There were 2 arrays on the front and back of the holy garment. One array was in the shape of a tiger spreading its wings, while the other array was in the shape of an eagle with sharp teeth. It was incomparably imposing. However, what caught people's attention was that there was a very obvious groove on the chest area of the holy garment. The groove was already empty, as if there was something similar to a gemstone there. Su Yun looked at the groove, and his heart immediately became excited. From the looks of it, it seems to match the size of the divine stone. It seems like there's no mistake. That divine stone is the stone on the clear sky holy robe. The Valley Master swept his gaze across the crowd, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He was very satisfied with everyone's expectant expressions. Everyone, this is the Valley's treasure, the clear sky holy robe. As his voice spread out, the surroundings of the Sword Discourse arena were in an uproar. Is this the clear sky holy robe? It really is a divine object, a treasure. Even if I look at it from afar, I can still feel how extraordinary it is. If such a treasure was in my hands, how great would that be? Such a divine object shouldn't appear in the sword world, right? This time, the hero's duel of the sword is going to be interesting. This treasure must be mine. Noises rose and fell, rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling again. The Sword Lord and Long Guangzhong of the Dragon and Sword Sect both stood up, staring at the saint robe with burning eyes. There was no one who did not desire it, no one who did not pay attention to it. Obtaining this saint robe was equivalent to forcefully raising one's cultivation by several times. Su Yun looked at the restless crowd, and almost everyone's faces were filled with passion and excitement. It could be said that even Su Yun himself was extremely excited, and wished that he could immediately rush up to the sword discourse arena, snatch the clothes and leave. The Sword Lord looked at Long Guangzhong of the Dragon and Sword Sect, then cupped his fists towards the Valley Master and said, "The Clear Sky Holy Robe is a sacred artifact passed down by the Clear Sky Emperor. Such a treasure must belong to a virtuous person, but I wonder who the Valley Master plans to give it to? I can't answer that question." The Valley Master chuckled and said, "Because the purpose of this Sword Discourse Conference is to make friends with the sword, to discuss the world with the sword, and whoever has outstanding sword skills and outstanding sword intent will obtain the position of Sword Master, then, whoever, will obtain the Clear Sky Holy Robe." These words were like a spark that had fallen into dry firewood, instantly igniting the entire sword discourse arena. Everyone shouted loudly, laughing and chatting, their fighting spirit exploding, their blood boiling. They wished they could immediately rush up to the sword discourse arena to carry out the sword discourse arena. Long Guangzhong was actually even more impatient than the sword sovereign. He directly opened his mouth and said loudly, "Valley Master, we have already said this much. I think it would be better not to waste everyone's time. Just say it. This is the sword discourse arena. How should we discuss the sword?" "That's right, Valley Master. Let's hurry up and talk about the rules. We can't wait any longer." The people below began to clamor and shout loudly. All right. Everyone, calm down, calm down." The Valley Master chuckled and said, "The rules of this sword discourse arena are very simple. It will be carried out in a duel. As the Sword Master, his sword techniques must be outstanding. I think everyone will agree to this method, right?" "Of course I agree. We have no objections." A few voices immediately echoed from below. The Valley Master nodded and clapped his hands. In an instant, a circle of water blue chi cover rose up around the sword discourse arena. These chi covers were like a waterfall, tightly surrounding the sword discourse arena. The surging profound energy rippled within the chi cover, and when the profound energy floated into the chi cover, it was immediately absorbed completely. "Everyone, it is my honor to be able to come to my mighty Sword Valley. My mighty Sword Valley is also honored by your presence." The head of the mighty Sword Valley was neither slow nor slow as he said with a smile, "There is no other purpose for this hero's sword discourse arena. It is all because of this Clear Sky Holy Robe. Everyone should have heard that my mighty Sword Valley was attacked a few days ago. To be honest, ever since my mighty Sword Valley obtained the Clear Sky Holy Robe, I have been immersed in this peeping every single day and night, and there has not been a single day that I have not been on guard and have been afraid. However, this time, in order to resist the invasion of a shameless person, my son has even lost his life. I am extremely grieved, and do not have much reluctance towards this saint robe, but people are guilty, clothes are innocent. After all, this is a treasure passed down by the Clear Sky Great Emperor. Even if I do not need it, there are still countless heroes who need it. Therefore, I boldly organized this hero's sword discourse arena. The rules of the sword are based on the rules of the Sword World's duel. If one side dies, the other side wins, and continues to the next round of challenges. When everyone is convinced and no one dares to fight, the saint robe will belong to him." The Valley Master bellowed, then took a few steps back and scanned the crowd. "Then, please begin. Who will go up on stage first and challenge the various heroes?" As soon as he said this, the crowd immediately boiled over. As soon as the Valley Master finished speaking, someone could no longer hold it in. "I think I should go first and ask for advice from the various heroes." A man wearing silver armor was the first to jump onto the stage, holding his sword and shouting. This person was at the 6th stage of the Sky Spirit Master, and could be considered an expert, but at the scene there were too many people who were stronger than the 6th stage of the Sky Spirit Master. Before this person could even stand firm on the stage, a flying sword flew over from below the stage, aiming straight for his heart. The man hurriedly blocked, and with a clang, the flying sword was knocked away. Then, a figure rushed up from below the stage, grabbed onto the flying sword, and began to attack crazily. The two of them fought. Clang, 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 the sounds continued, and the profound chi overflowed in all directions. The sword discourse arena was very big, but the two of them were nimble and swift, sometimes scurrying to the west, sometimes scurrying to the east, causing the spectators to be dazzled. When the two of them used their profound skill, the chaotic sword chi immediately smashed everywhere, flying everywhere. A large amount of sword chi struck the layer of water blue chi cover surrounding the sword discourse arena, and was completely absorbed by the chi cover. Seeing this, everyone instantly understood the meaning of the chi cover. If not for this barrier, such a small place would not have been enough for the spirit cultivator to fight. The battle ended very quickly, with the death of one person. Neither side held back, and both sides killed each other with an attitude of not stopping until one side died. There was no pity, much less sympathy. When one of them had his blood splattered all over the stage, there was another commotion below the sword discourse arena. Your sword skill is only SOSO. In my opinion, you are just a clown. Have a taste of the Three Suns Sword Sovereign's power. The shouts exploded, and another person rushed onto the stage. The battle became more and more intense. Su Yun leaned on the wall of the valley, his gaze fixed on the battle on the sword discourse arena. Although some people's battles were unsightly, most of the sword world's battles were worth watching. The people of the sword world all used the sword as their martial arts, and spent their entire lives studying sword techniques. Their understanding of the sword definitely surpassed any realm in the myriad heavens realm, and could not be underestimated. To be able to witness so many sword elites fighting, Su Yun felt that this trip to the sword world was not in vain. I wonder what kind of surprise the famous sword sects in the sword world, the Dragon Sword Sect, will bring me. Su Yun's gaze swept across Long Guangzhong and the others in the distance, his heart filled with excitement as he looked at them with anticipation. Chapter 7:12. Bang! A muffled sound exploded on the sword discourse arena. A figure rolled a few times on the sword discourse arena. His hair was disheveled, and he looked extremely miserable. His face was covered in blood, and sword scars covered his entire body. Before he could even crawl up, a sharp sword pierced through his head, straight into his throat, and pierced through his body. Tragic death. Another expert swordsman had died tragically. However, facing such a cruel scene, regardless of whether it was men or women, none of them felt fear. Instead, they became even more excited. The sword chi, blood chi, and killing intent on the stage were like the most intense aphrodisiacs, stimulating the hormones in their bodies, stimulating their blood, and seducing their fighting spirit. Everyone shouted loudly, the swords on their backs and waists trembled, and the eyes of some of the swordsmen even turned red. Good kill! Good kill! Continue to kill! That was a beautiful sword strike. Everyone shouted at the top of their lungs. What kind of crazy group of people were they? After one person was killed, another person impatiently rushed onto the stage and engaged in a fierce battle with the other person. The sword images occupied the entire sword discourse arena. Everyone was dazzled, and their gazes followed the two swords that were constantly colliding. One of them held a sword in one hand, while the other hand activated the profound chi. His feet were close to the ground, and he continuously rotated his body, and every time his body rotated, his sword would also dance out, and the sword chi attached to the sword would be like rain, crashing towards his opponent. Facing such a concentrated attack, ordinary people would usually choose to dodge, but as long as the opponent dodged, they would immediately be hit by his move. The profound chi that he had accumulated for a long time would instantly release a long profound chi wall. It was fast and vicious, and when people dodged, they would not be able to defend, and the profound chi was especially sharp, directly cutting the opponent apart. As soon as this person went up on stage, he used this move to kill two people. The sword discourse arena was dyed red with blood, and broken corpses scattered everywhere. Su Yun stared intently. Almost every movement and sword technique of the people fighting on the stage was clearly seen by him. The two of them fought in a chaotic manner, but in Su Yun's eyes, it was extremely slow. If he were to use these sword techniques, he might be able to be faster. Of course, he was not only focused on the sword moves, but also on the activation of the profound chi and the distribution of energy when he attacked. This was extremely important in a duel between swordsmen. This Mo Luo River sword really lives up to its reputation. One hand and one sword, the hand is the sword, and the sword is the hand. One attack, one defense. It's simply impossible to guard against. That's right, especially that left hand of his. It's incomparably hard, and can actually be used as a sword. When fighting with an opponent, he can directly use his hand as a sword when the opponent is unprepared to attack. Unless it's a dual martial artist who can guard against it. Even someone skilled in dual martial arts might not be able to defend against it. Who would be wary of a bare hand? Not bad. The people at the side discussed spiritedly. Su Yun nodded as he listened. Today, Su Yun's understanding of the sword could be said to have expanded to a whole new world. The knowledge of the people here regarding the sword had completely surpassed the people of the other realms by many times. Perhaps they were not the strongest, but their sword skills were the most novel and strange. The battle continued. Everyone was excited for the battle on the sword discourse arena. Only the two of them remained unmoved, as steady as a mountain. One was Long Guangzhong of the Dragon Sword sect, and the other was the Sword Sovereign of the Cloud Heavenly Palace. Their eyes were half open as they quietly watched the battle. There was no joy or sorrow on their faces, nor were there any waves. They were like the water of a calm lake. Perhaps in their eyes, the battles of the people in front of them were nothing more than children playing house, and were not of much interest. The battle lasted for an entire day. When the corpses piled up on the sword discourse arena, the mighty Sword Valley Lord finally stood up and stopped the competition. If he didn't clean it up, the sword discourse arena would be completely filled with corpses. The competition rested for 6 hours, allowing the people of the mighty Sword Valley to clean up the battlefield. Although they had lost a lot of people in the competition, no one felt that it was cruel or pitiful. After all, their souls had not been destroyed by the other party. Their bodies had been destroyed, and only their cultivation had been crippled. Furthermore, the people of the sword world were very indifferent to life and death. In their hearts, only duels were supreme. And on this day, the people of the Cloud Heavenly Palace and the Dragon Sword sect did not send anyone up, causing many people who had been waiting for the battle between the two great sects to be extremely disappointed. During the break, most of the people were talking about the battle, while Su Yun closed his eyes and thought about the process of those people fighting. After an unknown period of time, a deep bell sound once again rippled across the sword discourse arena. Everyone looked up and saw the Valley Master stand up once again and land on the sword discourse arena. He called out, "The sword discourse continues." As his voice fell, it once again ignited the entire mighty Sword Valley. The shouts continued to fly. The person who won the previous match immediately jumped onto the stage and waved his sword. Two swordsmen immediately rushed up from below. Looking at the two of them fighting to be the first, it seemed as if they both wanted to take the lead. However, before the two of them could even get on stage, a golden sword chi pierced through their bodies. Fresh blood floated to the edge of the sword discourse arena, and then two ice-cold corpses landed at the side of the sword discourse arena. Looking closely, the person who attacked was actually someone from the Dragon Sword sect. The scene immediately went into an uproar. Su Yun opened his eyes wide, and looked at the disciple of the Dragon Sword sect who was rushing up the stage. That sword chi just now was especially sharp, and could be said to be on par with the Spirit Lord chi. It was unknown how many times stronger it was than the swift wind spirit chi. Is this the special profound chi of the Dragon Sword sect? Su Yun thought. The moment the disciple of the Dragon Sword sect, Li Mu, rushed onto the stage, he immediately raised his sword and slashed. His sword opened and closed, quickly dancing. The golden profound chi danced on the ice-cold blade, like an incomparably charming golden dragon pouncing on his opponent. The opponent hurriedly raised his sword to meet the attack. The sword shadows overlapped and the sword dance was extremely fast, but it couldn't even break through the golden sword chi. He was forced to retreat step by step, and in an instant, the opponent gained the upper hand. Exclamations could be heard incessantly. Is this the Dragon Sword chi of the Dragon Sword sect? So powerful! Everyone sighed. The disciple of the Dragon Sword sect shouted loudly, the dragon on the sword seemed to roar angrily, the sharp sword trembled violently, and the sound of the sword crying filled the sky. A ray of golden light shattered the profound chi on the spirit cultivator's sword, and pierced through his chest with lightning speed. That person's body trembled, and his attacks suddenly stopped. He froze on the spot. Following that, Li Mu flew up and slashed down. The sharp sword slashed from his head to his crotch. His entire body was cut in half, and he died on the spot. A complete victory. Easily killed. The eyes of everyone below the stage lit up. They were completely convinced by the sword skills of the Dragon Sword sect. Li Mu retracted his sword. He did not even look at the opponent behind him. His gaze swept across the people below the sword discourse arena, and his eyes finally landed on the Cloud Heavenly Palace. Provocation. A naked provocation. Li Mu was already declaring war on the Cloud Heavenly Palace. Could it be that the grudge between the Cloud Heavenly Palace and the Dragon Sword sect was about to play out on the sword discourse arena? Seeing Li Mu's attitude, the people of the Cloud Heavenly Palace were naturally furious, and immediately, there were people who wanted to rush out and fight with him on the sword discourse arena. However, the Sword Lord gently raised his arm and said indifferently, "Don't be impatient, just let him be." As the sound of his voice faded, the surrounding people were stunned. He never thought that the Sword Lord would choose to avoid the battle at this time. What is it? Are all the people of the Cloud Heavenly Palace cowards? Immediately, someone could not bear to watch any longer and shouted out loudly. Upon closer inspection, the person who spoke was someone from the sect of Dragon and Sword. What did you say? The people from the Cloud Heavenly Palace were enraged. Didn't you hear what I said clearly? Do I need to repeat myself? Coward! If you have the ability, go up and fight with our senior brother Li Mu for 300 rounds. You, Zhang Fei. Don't say any more, just let them. The Sword Lord shouted again. When the people of Cloud Heavenly Palace heard this, they could only suppress their anger and shut their mouths. The actions of the Cloud Heavenly Palace naturally caused a burst of ridicule from the people of the sect of Dragon and Sword. The enmity between the two sects had lasted for a long time, and the surrounding people were already used to it. However, everyone was still looking forward to the fight between the people of the sect of Dragon and Sword. Since the Cloud Heavenly Palace avoided the battle, the others could only go up the stage to challenge him. However, Li Mu's absolute strength had scared many people, and some people who thought that they could not contend against him had already decided to give up on this year's sword discourse competition. They were not willing to destroy their bodies and lose their cultivation for the sake of the clear sky holy robe. It was not worth it, and they might not be able to obtain the clear sky holy robe if they went up. After waiting for a long time, someone finally went up to fight. However, Li Mu's dense and powerful dragon sword chi was not something an ordinary person could contend against. That person had only gone up the stage for a few dozen breaths before his head was chopped off and he died. After that, the surroundings of the sword discourse arena became deathly silent. Li Mu held onto his sword that was covered in blood and stood beside the statue, coldly staring at the people below. His eyes were filled with arrogance and disdain. Is no one going up the stage to challenge me? Seeing that there was no movement from below the stage, a trace of disappointment flashed across the Valley Master's eyes as he stood up and shouted. However, there was no sign of anyone coming up. When Li Mu saw this scene, the killing intent in his eyes immediately dissipated by 30%. The corner of his mouth curled up as he let out a low and complacent laugh. Lord Sword Lord. The people of Cloud Heavenly Palace could no longer hold back their anger. Let him be. Don't be rash. The Sword Lord was still calm and indifferent as he spoke. But, could it be that we have to watch as the people from the sect of Dragon and Sword take away the clear sky holy robe? Zhang Fei said hatefully. Take it away? The Sword Lord revealed a disdainful smile. They can't take it away. All of you just need to calm down and watch. There are so many people gathered here, and there are countless capable people. No matter what, it won't be his turn to take the treasure. As soon as he said this, the people of Cloud Heavenly Palace calmed down a little. Since the Sword Lord was not in a hurry, it was useless for them, as disciples, to be impatient. They could only watch. Crash. At this moment, a figure finally appeared from below. This person was dressed in a long robe and held a desolator in his hand. His figure was elegant as he landed directly on the sword discourse arena. Everyone turned to look. Is that Lu Xiao, who is ranked 17th on the heroic sword list? The crowd burst into an uproar. The expert of the heroic sword list had finally made his move. Chapter 713. Heroic Sword List. It was a list that counted the talented and powerful young geniuses in the past 500 years in the sword world. Although the people on the list were all people who had gradually revealed their talents in the past 500 years, every single existence on the list could be considered a tyrant. No one dared to underestimate the peak-level spirit cultivator, and everyone's future was limitless. The moment Lu Xiao went up on stage, the uproar was endless. After 5 breaths of time, the people around the sword discourse arena were all talking about Lu Xiao, and their eyes were all focused on Lu Xiao. Li Mu, who was looking down on everyone just now, was immediately thrown to the back of everyone's minds. When Lu Xiao went up on stage, the desolator in his hand spun around his fingertips, and looked at the person in front of him who was filled with killing intent. I am Lu Xiao. Greetings, fellow swordsmen from the Dragon Sword sect. Lu Xiao cupped his fist. Someone from the heroic sword list? Li Mu's eyes congealed. When did you enter the rankings? 12 years ago. It's been a while. Li Mu slowly raised the sword in his hand, and a bit of golden profound qi overflowed from the blade. Then let me experience just how powerful you people from the heroic sword list are. Come on. Fellow swordsman Li Mu is really impatient. I saw that you had fought a few rounds in a row and were tired as well. You should take it easy and wait for you to recover some profound qi before fighting again. Otherwise, others will say that I, Lu Xiao, have won unfairly. If that's the case, then I will humiliate the 3 words heroic sword list. Lu Xiao said indifferently, his eyes filled with confidence. Hearing that, Li Mu flew into a rage. Those people from before were just casually killed, they did not consume much profound qi. In my current state, killing you is like crushing an ant. Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because you're on the heroic sword list. Take this. With that said, Li Mu leaped up, the profound qi around his body erupted, and pounced towards Lu Xiao. Lu Xiao stood at his original position, quietly watching Li Mu rush over. He was neither impatient nor flustered, and the smile on his face seemed to be telling everyone that everything was under his control. When he got close, suddenly, he extended his hand and pointed. A sword beam exploded from his finger and covered Li Mu in a fan shape. Li Mu immediately dodged. Lu Xiao also moved at this time, but he did not attack. Instead, he chose to dodge. He retreated all the way to the edge of the sword discourse arena, then pinched the desolator in his hand and blew on it. Woo-woo waves of mournful and faint flute sounds spread out in all directions from the sword discourse arena. His voice floated out, and a circle of light green ripples floated out from the desolator, covering the entire sword discourse arena in the blink of an eye. Everyone was startled. The people from the dragon sword sect hurriedly looked towards Li Mu. When the ripples collided with Li Mu's body, they did not cause him any harm at all. Instead, they left a layer of light green aura on his body. This aura was like rain, staining his entire body. Li Mu panicked. He lowered his head and looked around. He didn't find any injuries, nor did he feel any discomfort. However, he didn't know what the aura was for, so he quickly retreated. Scared. LV Xiao sneered, put down the desolator, stretched out his hand, and hooked his finger at Li Mu, saying, "Come." Seeing the other party act so arrogantly, Li Mu felt a surge of anger. With a low growl, he raised his sword and charged forward. This was a provocation that could not be tolerated. The people below the stage could not help but shake their heads. Just based on their mentality, LV Xiao had the upper hand. Li Mu's profound qi was restless, like a surging flood. It rushed out from his body towards the sword in his hand, but the moment the profound qi left his body immediately exploded. His entire body flew backwards, falling to the ground and spitting out blood. Huh! The exclamations from below continued. Backlash of the profound qi? This seems to be the backlash of the profound qi? But why would there be a backlash from the profound qi? Could it be related to that strange aura? Li Mu stood up with difficulty. He looked down and discovered that there was a large hole in the palm of his hand that was holding onto the sword. The surrounding skin was cracked, and even the bones had loosened. What kind of move is this? Li Mu was completely shocked. A trace of killing intent flashed past LV Zhao's eyes, and he immediately rushed forward. A move that can decapitate you. As his voice fell, he held onto the desolator with both hands, and with a shake of his arm, he pulled out the sword from the desolator and slashed towards Li Mu. Li Mu was shocked. He immediately took out his magic treasure to block, but the moment the magic treasure appeared, just as the profound qi was about to activate the magic treasure exploded again, and the hand holding the magic treasure was directly blown to pieces. He was affected by the explosion and retreated a few steps. It was already too late to defend. When he raised his head to look, Lu Zhao's Xiao Jian had already slashed over. The sharp and slender sword chopped down from the top of his head. He was cut in half and died a miserable death. Such a ruthless and strange technique caused the surroundings of the sword discourse arena to be filled with gasps. Strong. It was not just strong, it was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. Li Mu, an expert from the sect of Dragon and Sword, was beaten to the point where he didn't even have the strength to retaliate. LV Xiao did not use any fancy moves, nor did he use any ink. He found an opportunity to kill. Long Guangzhong's expression was abnormally ugly. Looking at LV Xiao, who had a complacent smile on the sword discourse arena, killing intent gradually flashed in his eyes. Bastard! You actually dare to kill someone from my dragon sword sect. I think you don't want to live anymore. Avenge senior brother Li Mu, kill this person. The disciples of the sect of Dragon and Sword were all enraged. They roared loudly, wishing that they could rush up and kill LV Xiao. A disciple was prepared to rush up to the sword discourse arena to fight with LV Xiao, but he was stopped by Long Guangzhong. Don't act recklessly, you are not his match. Long Guang said solemnly. But, quiet down, whoever dares to go up on stage, I will kill him. Long Guangzhong impatiently growled. When the people of the sect of Dragon and Sword heard this, they all lowered their heads. With the people of the sect of Dragon and Sword acting like this, the cloud heavenly palaces side would be bustling with noise and excitement. Haha, why are the people of the sect of Dragon and Sword afraid? Aren't you all very capable? Go on. Aren't you invincible? How did Li Mu die? Haha, are you guys not good enough? Do you only know how to talk? Ha 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 ha. The sounds of ridicule did not stop, causing the people of the sect of Dragon and Sword to gnash their teeth in anger. LV Xiao easily killed Li Mu, stunning everyone. For a moment, the entire scene fell into silence, and no one dared to go up on stage. Su Yun stared at Xiao Jian and thought for a while. Although he did not know what kind of qi it was, there was one thing he was sure of. Once he was tainted by this profound qi, he definitely could not let the profound qi in his body leave his body. It seemed that once his profound qi came into contact with this qi, it would immediately explode. It could be said that once this qi touched his body, his profound strength would be crippled. In a fight, there was no other way but to fight hand to hand. Su Yun looked at the two men and one woman he met on the road, only to see them staring at LV Xiao with ugly expressions. No one dared to go up. After watching these matches, they should know the difference between them and these experts. May I ask if there are any other heroes willing to challenge me? The mighty Sword Valley Lord roared. The people below looked at each other, but no one came up. This made the mighty Sword Valley Lord feel rather awkward. No one is willing to spar with me? In this way, this clear sky holy robe can only belong to me. LV Xiao smiled, then turned and nodded towards the mighty Sword Valley Lord. An undetectable haze flashed past the eyes of the mighty Sword Valley Lord. He did not immediately hand over the clear sky holy robe to LV Xiao, but hesitated for a moment before shouting again. No one dares to fight? Then, are you all planning to give the clear sky holy robe to Lord LV? Su Yun pressed down on the death sword beside him, and slowly closed his eyes, not looking at the stage. However, after a while, a voice finally rang out from the crowd. The clear sky holy robe is a divine object. If we give it to a piece of trash, wouldn't that be a waste of this divine object? As the sound of his voice faded, a figure instantly appeared on the sword discourse arena. When the mighty Sword Valley Lord saw this, a look of joy appeared on his face. He immediately retreated from the sword discourse arena and left it to the two of them. LV Xiao looked at the person who had come. It was a man wearing a black blade master outfit and a bamboo hat. He then laughed lightly. Who are you? You actually dare to challenge someone from the heroic sword list? However, Lu Xiao, who is rank 17th, is merely a rat in my eyes. Why wouldn't I dare to challenge him? After the man finished speaking, he took off his bamboo hat, revealing a face full of scars. He then took out a blue-edged sword from his waist, pointed the tip of the sword at LV Xiao, and snorted, "Have you heard of the deaf sword?" As the sound of his voice faded, the crowd below burst into an uproar. The originally quiet crowd immediately boiled over. Deaf sword? LV Xiao's face immediately froze. You are the 13th ranked deaf sword Mao Fei. At least you have some knowledge. Mao Fei said indifferently. A mere existence rank 17th, how can you dare to be so arrogant here? Today, I will teach you how to use the sword. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately rushed over. LV Xiao looked a little flustered as he anxiously blocked Xiao Jian's attack. The difference in strength between Mao Fei and him wasn't that great, but the other party was ranked 4 places higher than him. He believed that his strength was inferior to the other parties, and an invisible pressure arose in his heart, causing him to involuntarily panic. The flying sword slashed at Lu Xiao. What was surprising was that the hand he used to hold the sword was not stable. Instead, it was constantly trembling and swaying. Was this a person who used a sword? Why couldn't he even hold his sword steadily? Many people who didn't understand Mao Fei had countless doubts in their hearts. What's wrong with this guy? Why is his hand always trembling? And the sword that he slashed out didn't have much power? Is he really someone on the heroic sword list? A puzzled look came out from the side of Su Yun. He looked over and saw 2 spirit cultivator-s conversing. Of course he is someone on the heroic sword list. You don't understand Deaf Sword, nor do you know how exquisite his sword techniques are. The reason why he is called Deaf Sword is because of this. His arm trembles to make the sword tremble, and when the sword trembles, it will produce a strange sword cry. When the sword cry spreads through the air, it will drill into the ears of others, causing them to lose their hearing at first, and after a while they will hallucinate. In the end, it will even cause their own brains to die. And when the sword touches the opponent, this strange power will become even stronger, which is why he is called the Deaf Sword. It is said that the Deaf Sword can easily defeat spirit beasts, and even the existence of the Spirit Emperor is not immune to such a terrifying sword technique. So that's how it is. The man nodded. Su Yun could not help but nod. The people on the heroic sword leaderboard were all extraordinary people. They were all geniuses with extraordinary talent and skills. If he could fight with these people, he would definitely benefit greatly. Su Yun's hand could not help but press down on the death sword beside him. Chapter 7:14. Clang, clang, clang. Pucci. The battle on the sword discourse arena was extremely intense. Lu Xiao was forced to retreat step by step, unable to retaliate. In less than a dozen breaths of time, he was forced to the edge of the sword discourse arena. At this moment, Lu Xiao was in a sorry state. His entire body was covered in sword scars, and blood dyed his robes red. The profound qi on his body was also in a mess, looking extremely miserable. He held Xiao Jian and gasped for breath as he stared at the person in front of him. He felt a splitting headache and could not even stand steadily. Even his vision had started to blur. He had already been severely corroded by the Deaf Sword. Big fish eat small fish, and small fish eat shrimp. LV Xiao easily defeated Li Mu, but against the Deaf Sword and Flying Mortar, he was another Li Mu. I never thought that the people on the heroic sword list would have similar rankings, but their strength would be like heaven and earth. I wonder how strong the number one expert is. He must be an expert whose fighting strength is ranked in the millions. The people below were all discussing. Everyone was almost certain that Lu Xiao would lose, and that Mo Fei would win this match without any suspense. Su Yun stared at the sword discourse arena. There was not much meaning to it. In this kind of situation, if Lu Xiao was still unable to maintain his state of mind and stabilize his state of mind, then he would definitely lose. Even if he was given the strongest magic treasure in the world, he would still not be able to defeat Mo Fei. There was no other reason. In terms of momentum and mentality, Lu Xiao had suffered a crushing defeat. Just like Lu Xiao and Li Mu before, Lu Xiao was stronger than Li Mu, so he was extremely confident that he could easily kill him. However, when Mao Fei announced his name and ranking on the heroic sword list, Lu Xiao panicked. His confidence was shaken, and with Mao Fei's strength, Lu Xiao's mentality gradually collapsed, and the battle turned into this. In a swordsman competition, one's mentality was especially important. Often, a strong heart could give a swordsman unexpected help. This was also a part of one's strength. Crash. At this moment, a light sound rang out. Following that, a flower bloomed in the crowd. Su Yun looked over, only to see Qin Hong San, who was standing in the crowd, suddenly open his red umbrella. The surrounding people felt that it was strange, but they saw her expressionlessly looking at the people on the sword discourse arena, her hands tightly gripping onto the handle of the umbrella. Seeing that, Su Yun's eyes congealed. Could it be? This Qin Hong San was going to make his move again? However, under the watchful eyes of so many experts, she still dared to act recklessly? This place couldn't be compared to the tavern. The people around the tavern were all spectators, but not only were there spectators here, there were also countless experts. Once they were discovered, only death and destruction awaited them. Hey, what are you doing? Suddenly, an angry shout rang out from the crowd. The people around were confused. Looking in the direction of the voice, They saw a female cultivator in a green shirt turning around and glaring at a male cultivator behind her. The male cultivator's face was full of doubt and confusion. He looked at her in confusion. "What do you mean? What happened to me?" "You still won't admit it? You know very well what you just did." The female spirit cultivator revealed a furious expression, her face flushed red. The bystanders were especially puzzled, but some of the more imaginative ones were already letting their imaginations run wild. What else could happen when they saw a woman getting angry at a man? Clang! At this moment, an even more shocking scene occurred. The female cultivator suddenly pulled out the sword from her waist and slashed at the male cultivator without a care for anything else. Clearly, he had flown into a rage out of humiliation. The male cultivator's reaction wasn't slow either. He quickly dodged the female cultivator's sword like a rabbit. "Don't even think about leaving." The female cultivator flew into a rage out of humiliation. She activated the profound strength and slashed randomly, causing sword chi to shoot out in all directions. The crowd immediately became restless. What happened? The head of the mighty Sword Valley looked towards the chaotic crowd and quickly shouted, "Quickly go take a look." "Yes, Valley Master." The people of the mighty Sword Valley shouted and rushed over. They split into two groups and drove the crowd away. Then, one of them subdued the female cultivator and the other subdued the male cultivator. Everyone stopped. The mighty Sword Valley Lord walked over, looked at the angry female cultivator, and asked, "You two, what happened? Why are you causing trouble in the mighty Sword Valley? This person doesn't know shame, he actually dares to harass me." The female cultivator said angrily, "How can you slander me?" The male cultivator immediately became anxious. "We cultivators restrain our desires and cultivate our character. How can we do such a despicable thing? No matter how hungry and thirsty I am, how can I act recklessly in a place like this? This sword friend is right. We are not ordinary people. Even if this sword friend admires you, he would definitely not do such a thing that even mortals would not care about. This sword friend, are you mistaken and wrongly accused?" The mighty Sword Valley Lord said in a deep voice. "This time, the hero arena has invited all the famous sages and great existences. We are not ordinary people. Even if this sword friend admires you, he would definitely not do such a thing that mortals would not care about." The female cultivator opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. "Everyone, this is the mighty Sword Valley. I hope that everyone can give this old man some face and stop arguing. This matter is over. If everyone continues to mess around, this old man can only ask everyone to leave." The head of the mighty Sword Valley shouted. How could he give these two face when they were messing around here? What's more, they were just two nameless rogue cultivators. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone was watching, he really would have chased the two of them away. When the two of them heard this, they didn't dare to make a sound. The head swordsman of the mighty Sword Valley left straight away. Order was gradually restored to the scene. But at this moment, waves of uproar and exclamations sounded out from the surroundings of the Sword Discourse Arena. The head of the mighty Sword Valley tensed up. He anxiously looked towards the Sword Discourse Arena, only to see that the outcome of the battle had already been decided. Xiao Jian, who was retreating step by step, was in a sorry state, had actually chopped off the head of the deaf sword. Lu Xiao was gasping for breath, holding the sword in one hand and the head in the other. His face was extremely pale, and there was a deep sense of fear in the depths of his eyes. But very quickly, this fear turned into a hysterical fanaticism. He laughed hysterically. Many people were stunned. All of a sudden, how did Lu Xiao, who was at a disadvantage, kill his opponent? Everyone's attention was focused on the commotion here, but they ignored the competition. However, there was one person whose gaze had always been on the Sword Discourse Arena, and that was Su Yun, who was in the corner. Qin Hongfan was already prepared to make his move. The commotion of the others could not attract his attention at all. and when everyone's attention was attracted by the female cultivator, Qin Hong Fan made his move. All of the qi on Lu Xiao's body was instantly eliminated, and for some reason, he was struck by a sneak attack. His hand that was holding the sword was suddenly cut off, almost without any warning, and many people thought that it was Lu Xiao who did it. But Su Yun firmly believed that this was definitely Qin Hong Fan's help. Lu Xiao had long since lost the ability to fight against Mao Fei, much less kill him in such a short period of time. How could this be? Lu Xiao actually killed Mao Fei, that's impossible. What happened just now? Puzzled and doubtful voices rose and fell from the crowd. Although many people were puzzled, the truth was right in front of their eyes. No one doubted it. Perhaps not many people in the audience realized that Lu Xiao's victory was actually due to Qin Hong Fan's help. Perhaps other than Su Yun, there were a few people who noticed it, but they would not point it out. After all, there was no evidence, so even if they said it out loud, it would be useless. Sometimes, life is so helpless, the rules are maintained by everyone, but when everyone breaks them, your protection is often powerless and useless. Lu Xiao threw the head on the sword discourse arena, took a deep breath, and quickly took out a pill and placed it in his mouth, trying to recover some of his strength. However, others might not give him the chance. Before Lu Xiao could even take 3 breaths, another spirit cultivator rushed up from below. Su Yun looked. The person on stage was also a familiar face. Lu Yi. It was the older man from the 2 men and 1 woman he had met in the tea house and tavern. Lu Yi. Come on, don't embarrass us. Meng Qian, who was with him, shouted. Don't worry, he is already at the end of his tether, how can I not defeat him? On the heroic sword list? Today, I will kill you to establish my might and enter the heroic sword list. Lu Yi growled, then raised his sword and rushed towards Lu Xiao. Is this guy here to take advantage of me? The people below the stage snorted. Seeing that, Su Yun secretly shook his head. This was actually courting death. Lu Xiao, whose face was pale and panting, turned his head to stare at Lu Yi, who was rushing over. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth raised into a strange sneer. He held on to Xiao Jian tightly with both hands and waved in the direction of Lu Yi. Crash! A shockingly powerful sword qi suddenly exploded out from Xiao Jian's body, rushing into the distance. The sword qi was nearly 100 meters tall and a few meters wide. Like a surging wave, it directly pounced towards Lu Yi. Lu Yi's pupils instantly widened. He immediately spun the sword in his hand, activated the profound qi, and hurriedly defended. However, the sword qi's attack was extremely sudden, and there was no time to dodge. Lu Yi was instantly engulfed by the sword qi. The fierce sword qi directly cut open the sword discourse arena, hitting the qi at the edge, entering it, causing the qi to tremble violently, like a candle in the wind. The people around the sword discourse arena were shocked, and all of them retreated. When they looked at the sword discourse arena again, they could no longer see Lu Yi's figure. Zhong Bai and Meng Qian were stunned. The 2 of them widened their eyes as they looked at the sword discourse arena in shock. One move to wipe it out. Not even a corpse remained. Without any superfluous methods, from front to back, there was not a single bit of extra strength. How was this possible? Zhong Bai's face was covered in sweat as he stared blankly. Right now, he wasn't the only one with such a face, the others were even more so. Lu Xiao and Jiu Fei had fought for half a day, and the profound qi's consumption was terrifying. How could he kill Lu Yi in one move? Even if Lu Yi's strength was not as good as Lu Xiao's, how could he be killed in one move? Was Lu Xiao too strong? Or had he been hiding his strength when he was fighting with Jiu Fei? No one knew. Was this still the 17th ranked existence on the heroic sword list? Was this still the Lu Xiao that everyone was familiar with? Everything was too unusual. He was truly the dark horse of this hero tournament. Shocked eyes stared at the sword discourse arena. Lu Xiao held on to Xiao Jian, his eyes indifferently staring at the crowd below, and said with a smile, Which other hero wants to spar with me on stage? Please enlighten me. The people below were silent for a few seconds. Everyone looked at each other, but no one made a sound, much less went up on stage to fight. Who else could fight against Lu Xiao, whose strength was unfathomable? I'm afraid not. Oh? Is there no one else to challenge? Seeing the silence below, the venerable Sword Valley Lord also stood up and walked onto the Sword Discourse arena. He called out, "If no one goes up on stage, then, the divine object of the clear sky holy robe will be Lu Xiao, Lu Junkai of the heroic sword list." Gotcha. At this moment, a light sound rang out. It was extremely abrupt in the crowd, and following that, waves of commotion came from the dragon and sword sect. Everyone hurriedly looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a person moving, step by step, towards the Sword Discourse arena. Long Guangzhong. Chapter 7:15. Long Guangzhong carried the long sword that was emitting a cold light, his expression solemn as he walked towards the Sword Discourse arena step by step. The crowd automatically parted to make a path for them. Pairs of surprised, expectant, astonished, and admiring gazes landed on him. The people from the sect of Dragon and Sword actually made their move? This is unbelievable. Seeing Long Guangzhong's actions, the Cloud Heavenly Palace was already in an uproar, all of them raising their heads to watch. The people from the sect of Dragon and Sword are really impatient. If I were Long Guangzhong, I would definitely wait a little longer, wait for these experts to go up and fight with Lu Xiao, wait for those experts to fight to the death, wait for those experts to fight to the death, and then make a move. At that time, the opponents will all be exhausted, and I will wait for them to be exhausted. Wouldn't I be able to easily seize the title of Sword Master and obtain the Clear Sky Holy Robe? That's right, Long Guangzhong really doesn't have any foresight. The people of Cloud Heavenly Palace were discussing. However, the Sword Lord could not help but shake his head. You are all wrong. Long Guangzhong is on stage at the right time. If he doesn't go up now, then the person on stage will be me. As these words fell, everyone was speechless. Lord Swordlord, what do you mean? What else can it mean? Lu Xiao's strength is not simple, you are not his match, I can say. Even if Long Guangzhong were to let those fellows from the sect of Dragon and Sword go up, they would only be throwing their lives away, it would be meaningless. At Lu Xiao's level of battle, most of the people present have already been eliminated unknowingly, thus, only he can fight Lu Xiao alone, and only then will he have a chance of winning. So that's how it is. But if that's the case, wouldn't it be too easy for us? One of them laughed softly. Lu Xiao and Long Guangzhong's strength are not simple. When the two tigers fight, there will definitely be injuries. When our Lord Swordlord steps onto the stage, who can defeat him? Isn't this Clear Sky Holy Robe something that belongs to my Cloud Heavenly Palace? That's right, ha ha ha. The group of people laughed again. However, the Sword Lord still had a heavy expression on his face. He glanced at the crowd and snorted, "That's a good idea, but what you guys can think of, could it be that Long Guangzhong can't think of it? Do you think that Long Guangzhong is stupider than all of you?" As soon as he said this, everyone's smile froze. Since Long Guangzhong dares to go up on stage, then he is naturally going for the Clear Sky Holy Robe. If he does not have the means to seize the Clear Sky Holy Robe, would he fight with Lu Xiao for nothing? Then, he turned his head and stared at the arena. Watch carefully, don't be complacent, don't get carried away. Don't be careless before you get what you want. Yes, the disciples answered in a low voice. On the sword arena, everyone held their breath and looked at the two people above. Lu Xiao had won every battle, and he had won in a way that left everyone dumbfounded. Long Guangzhong, an elite expert of the Dragon Sword sect, was famous in all directions. The fight between these two was undoubtedly going to be extremely exciting, and it was something that countless people were looking forward to. Long Guangzhong was not someone of the same level as Lu Qi, and presumably, Lu Xiao would not be so easy to deal with. The two of them stood on the stage and looked at each other. They did not say much, and then Long Guangzhong took the initiative to attack. Sword Qi gushed out from the sword platform. Empty the world. Whoosh! A figure flew across the horizon, and in the blink of an eye, it was already far away, approaching the vast and majestic empty encampment. Who is it? How dare you trespass and empty it? The disciples in front of the door immediately shouted. When the figure heard this, he landed on the ground and stood in front of the disciples. These disciples immediately became nervous and hurriedly took out their weapons. However, when everyone saw the appearance of the person who had arrived, they all revealed astonished expressions. Elder Luo Zizai? A person cried out involuntarily. The person beside him still couldn't believe it. He rubbed his eyes and took a closer look. That's right, it's me. The white-haired old man in front of him said expressionlessly, I want to see the Venerable One. Quickly go and inform him. The disciples guarding the door widened their eyes, unable to believe what they had just seen. What are you hesitating for? What? Don't tell me that you don't have me, the great elder, in your eyes? He said coldly. The disciples trembled, their faces filled with fear, and they hurriedly said respectfully, This disciple does not dare, it's just that elder didn't you already? He's already been taken away by the supreme sect, right? He took over the disciple's words. The disciple was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Although my sect has a grudge with the supreme sect, it is all a misunderstanding. Now that we have spoken, it is nothing much. Don't worry, the supreme sect did not do anything to me. Quickly inform the Venerable One, I want to see him. He still didn't have much of an expression on his face. After he finished speaking, he walked inside. The few disciples looked at each other and immediately ran towards the empty space. Very quickly, the news of him returning to the sect had spread throughout the entire sect. Gu Zizai led a group of empty upper echelons and quickly welcomed them. Before he could even reach the empty hall, he was stopped by the crowd. Elder Luo Zizai? Gu Zizai's expression was rather ugly as he stared at Gu Zizai. Elder Gu. He called out indifferently, his expression neither cold nor warm. Gu Zizai sized him up and said in surprise, Elder you seem to have recovered your memories? It doesn't matter if I recover my memories or not. What's important is that I'm back. Did the Supreme Sect people make things difficult for you? No. Then why did they let you come back? All of this is just a misunderstanding. After I meet the Venerable One, I will explain the whole story to everyone. He wanted to be at ease. Gu Zizai and the others were silent for a moment. They secretly exchanged glances, then finally nodded and made way. Gu Zizai and the others immediately followed him into the hall. The atmosphere was somewhat oppressive. Other than Gu Zizai, everyone else had their heads lowered, looking extremely nervous. However, that was true. After something happened to Gu Zizai, there were many people who wanted to kick him when he was down. Now that he had returned safely, wouldn't they be in trouble? Upon entering the palace, one could see the dignified Venerable Emptiness Realm expert sitting upright on the highest chair. He solemnly stared at Gu Zizai, who was walking in step by step, his deep eyes carefully scanning every corner of his body, not letting go of a single spot, as if he wanted to completely see through him. His expression did not change. There was no longer any confusion in his eyes. There was only calmness and calmness. Seeing this change, a trace of doubt that was hard to detect flashed across Venerable Emptiness Realm expert's eyes. Gu Zizai and the rest entered the hall one after another. They cupped their fists towards Venerable Emptiness Realm expert and respectfully greeted, Greetings, Venerable Emptiness Realm expert. And Venerable Emptiness nodded with an incomparably indifferent expression. He waved his hand at Gu Zizai and the others. Gu Zizai understood and retreated to the left and right. He cupped his fists, still standing in the middle of the palace. Elder Zizai. Venerable Emptiness Realm expert's magnetic voice floated over from above. He raised his head and said, "Venerable One, did you come back from Supreme Sect?" A light flashed across Venerable Emptiness Realm Expert's eyes as he asked in a low voice. "Reporting to the Venerable One, yes. Take him down." Almost as soon as he said this, Venerable Emptiness Realm Expert's cold shout exploded out. When Gu Zizai and the others heard this, they did not dare to hesitate and immediately extended their hands to capture him. However, just as everyone got close to him, they were blasted away by the dense profound qi that burst out from his body. Gu Zizai and the rest retreated, looking at him in shock. This was the empty heart-shaking qi. If he lost his memories, he would have forgotten many profound technique. He definitely did not know how to use this heart-shaking qi. If he could use it, then there was only one possibility: he had regained his memory. Venerable Emptiness Realm Expert's eyes narrowed. He knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, "Venerable One, I have already recovered my memories and am no longer the same as before. If the Venerable One does not care about the mistakes I have made in the past, I am willing to continue to serve you. I hope that the Venerable One will give me a chance to atone for my crimes." A trace of doubt flashed across Venerable Emptiness Realm Expert's eyes. "You came back from the Supreme Sect safe and sound. How do I know if you were brainwashed by them and returned to me to secretly preach?" In fact, the people of the Supreme Sect did want to do that, but just as they were instilling their so-called Supreme Divine Tao into me, I recovered my memories. Thinking about the kindness that the Venerable One had shown me, I wanted to be free and shed tears of gratitude. I would definitely not do anything that would let me down, so I left the Supreme Sect and returned to empty it out," he said unhurriedly. When the surrounding people heard this, they roughly understood what was going on. It turned out that when the Supreme Sect people wanted to brainwash him, he wanted to recover his memories. He snorted coldly and said, "Originally, I handed you over to the Supreme Sect to resolve the grudge between the two families, but now that you have left the Supreme Sect, the people of the Supreme Sect will definitely harbor hatred in their hearts, and in the future, they will definitely view me as an enemy, and in this way, you will once again stir up the grudge between the two families. If you want to be free, you will still be the sinner we cleared out." The people around looked at each other secretly. Everyone had something to say, but no one dared to speak. However, he bowed once again and said, "Venerable One, don't worry. This time, I did not encounter much obstruction when I left the Supreme Sect. It can be said that the people of the Supreme Sect have already taken the initiative to let me leave." "Why?" Venerable Lord Emptiness moved his body forward slightly and asked in a deep voice. "Because they gave up on me. I can't be brainwashed by them, I can't be absorbed by them, and it's unnecessary for them to force me to stay in the Supreme Sect. Rather than leaving me in the Supreme Sect and offending them, it's better to let me go. After all, Venerable One, the people of the Supreme Sect are actually very afraid of us clearing them out. Perhaps Venerable One does not understand the Supreme Sect, but in fact, the current Supreme Sect is not as strong as we imagine it to be. If I want to leave, they can't stop me. Moreover, right now they were in a critical situation of life and death. How can you take care of me?" As the sound of his voice faded, the entire hall fell silent. Venerable Lord Emptiness stared at him, then stood up and quickly walked down to help him up. "Quickly tell me everything about the current situation of the Supreme Sect." Venerable Emptiness's expression was unprecedentedly serious. Chapter 7:16. Under the dim sky, there was a large area of strange and dazzling buildings. The devil chi surrounded everything, making this place look like the lair of the abyss demons. The hazy sky, the cold temperature, the air rippled with a strange aura, like killing intent, mixed with devil chi. Even the devil cultivator was unable to adapt to this kind of strange place. This was the true devil sect. "What? You want to return to emptiness? Inside the Skull Palace, the two devils suddenly stood up from their chairs and looked at the standing demon who had come to report the news with a face full of shock. Yes, 3 days ago. Standing demon said with a serious face. It seems like Vice Sect leader's guess is correct. The two devils took a deep breath and paced back and forth twice. Their skinny and old bodies gave off a desolate feeling. Supreme Sect. I'm afraid they are really going to make a move on us. If the Supreme Sect were to make a move on them, then it would confirm Octagon Aniseed's conjecture. The Supreme Sect had indeed begun to move, and their goal was definitely not limited to emptying. Vice Sect leader, this is an opportunity for us. At this time, the inner demon at the side suddenly said in a low voice. He slowly opened his sleepy eyes and looked at the true Devil Sect elders in front of him. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, he laughed twice and said, "Continue, everyone continue, I'm listening." All the demons. The second elder and the second demon elder looked at Octagon Aniseed and ignored his words. They directly said to the inner demon, "Opportunity? What do you mean? Quickly tell me." Getting rid of the inner demon nodded his head and ignored the sleepy ghost, and said with a slightly bright voice, "According to the elders, the purpose of wanting to return to emptiness is to completely absorb the emptiness and become a member of the Supreme Sect, which means that all of the Supreme Sect's thoughts are placed on emptiness. We can take this opportunity to make a move on the Supreme Sect. Maybe we can even join hands to empty out and destroy the Supreme Sect together." With that said, all the Devil Cultivator fell into silence. However, Octagon Aniseed raised his fair hand and shook his head. "That's not right. That's not right. This is not right." "Vice Sect leader, what's wrong with that?" the inner demon quickly asked. Octagon Aniseed shook his head. "Your idea is not bad, but it is completely impossible, because Supreme Sect will not focus all their energy on emptying themselves. Their current enemy is still us, so it is impossible for your idea to be realized." "Why?" Remove inner demon asked in confusion. "You still don't know?" Octagon Aniseed laughed. "We killed Wuxin Zi and his group, and have long declared war with the Supreme Sect. The hatred between the two sides is already known to the entire world. The war between the two sides is about to arrive. Countless people are paying attention. If their Supreme Sect were to offend us at this time, wouldn't they be forcing us to join hands with them? If the two families were to join hands, the Supreme Sect would not be easy to deal with. How could they not know this?" "Then what you mean is, if you want to return and empty out, you were not sent by the Supreme Sect to preach? He was not brainwashed by the people of Supreme Sect? Go to the Heart Devil to ask. Brainwashing. Most likely, he has already been brainwashed. If he cannot be brainwashed, he will only die in Supreme Sect. Why would he return to empty out? Supreme Sect will make a move on him in the future. Isn't letting him go back like letting a tiger return to the mountain? Supreme Sect would no longer care about him, and would only let him spread his teachings. It would take time for him to spread his teachings, not to mention that he could not fall out with the emptiness at this critical juncture, so he would have to spread his teachings in secret. This way, it would take even longer, and Supreme Sect could use this period of time to deal with my true Devil Sect. Venerable Emptiness is a protector. He does not want to casually start a war with others. The people of Supreme Sect know this. If he wants to be free, then there is no need for them to do anything. If he wants to be free and be discovered, they are not afraid, because they are sure that he does not dare to make a move on the people of Supreme Sect. I'm afraid that we won't be able to detect it in a short period of time, and even if we do, I think that by that time, the battle between our true Devil Sect and his Supreme Sect would have already ended. Octagon Aniseed said at a moderate pace. Then we'll immediately send someone to clear them out and explain this matter to them. The inner demon said anxiously. Octagon Aniseed still shook his head. Don't be naive. If you want to return from the Supreme Sect, you will definitely be suspected by the Venerable One, but he actually entered the empty space safely. I'm afraid he used some method to make the empty space venerable one trust him. Even if you go, it will be futile, the people who cleared it will not believe us. Then, Vice Sect Leader, what should we do? What should we do? Octagon Aniseed raised his eyebrows, looked at the inner demon, and laughed. I don't know. Bang dong! An explosion sounded on the Sword Discourse Arena. The chi screen surrounding the Sword Discourse Arena began to shake violently. Two figures were entangled on the Sword Discourse Arena, multicolored rays of light continuously shone in all directions. It was extremely beautiful, the space inside trembled. The sword chi almost tore the entire Sword Discourse Arena apart, and from this, one could tell how intense the Sword Discourse Arena was. There was silence below. None of the surrounding spirit cultivator dared to make a sound. This match had deeply attracted everyone, including Su Yun. It had been an entire day. The battle between Lu Xiao and Long Guangzhong had already lasted for an entire day. It was still a draw. Everyone's mind was jumping along with the two swords swaying on the Sword Discourse Arena. Su Yun was the same, but after a day, worry surfaced on his face, as well as a filter. Long Guangzhong was gasping for breath, his face already showing signs of fatigue. His attack had also greatly reduced from its previous sharpness, from a single attack to both offense and defense, and then from both offense and defense to a single defense. Long Guang was tired. On the other hand, Lu Xiao was still in high spirits. His sword chi was overbearing, his attack was like a dragon. How could Lu Xiao have such a dense profound strength? Impossible. Last time he fought with the drunken sword, how could he have the strength he had today? There must be someone secretly helping him, but was it still that Qin Hong San? Qin Hong San's strength might be much stronger than Lu Xiao's, but even if the two of them were to join hands, they would definitely not be able to suppress Long Guangzhong to such a miserable state. What was going on? The more Su Yun thought about it, the more puzzled he became. Lu Xiao's sword was not considered exquisite. To be able to beat Long Guangzhong to such a state, it was all because of his dense profound qi. When Long Guangzhong's sword slashed at his body, most of it was blocked by his protective profound qi, and when his sword slashed at Long Guangzhong's body, even if it was a seemingly weak sword, it could still bring about a strange effect. However, the surrounding people did not understand Lu Xiao, and thought that the people on the heroic sword list were all so powerful. If Lu Xiao did not die after this battle, his ranking on the heroic sword list would probably rise again. Whiz! At this time, Lu Xiao's sword struck out again. Long Guangzhong raised his sword to block. The sword qi on his sword was like a dragon as it recklessly rushed out, wanting to shatter Lu Xiao's sword qi. However, Lu Xiao's sword qi suddenly turned into a barrier, like a thick iron wall. It forcefully blocked Long Guangzhong's sword qi, and continued to press towards Long Guangzhong. Along with his sword qi, it smashed onto Long Guangzhong's body. Bang! Long Guangzhong flew out once again, heavily crashing onto the ground. The people from the Dragon Sword sect were stunned. Long Guangzhong wanted to get up, but he was struck by his opponent's sword. The terrifying profound energy was like a falling sledgehammer, fiercely striking his chest. The sword qi shattered the Sword Discourse Arena beneath Long Guangzhong's body, and the terrifying power also shattered his protective profound energy. Long Guangzhong's chest was smashed into pieces, and his flesh was badly mutilated, looking extremely miserable. Such a scene caused the surrounding people to burst into an uproar. It looked like Long Guangzhong was going to lose. I never thought that this Long Guangzhong from the Dragon Sword sect would actually be so weak. He can't even defeat a guy ranked 17th on the heroic sword list. TSK. Hey, don't belittle Long Guangzhong like that. He is after all a famous expert, and in today's battle, I don't think it's because Long Guangzhong is too weak, but because this Lu Xiao is too strong. The strength that he is displaying right now is not something that a person ranked 17th on the heroic sword rankings can possess. Looks like Lu Xiao had some sort of fortuitous encounter. That's right. The sounds of lamentation continued. Long Guangzhong opened his eyes wide in pain as he watched Lu Xiao walk over step by step. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly, as if he wanted to fight again, but the current him no longer had the ability to contend against Lu Xiao. Whiz! A cold light flashed towards Long Guangzhong's neck. Lord Long Guangzhong. The disciples of the sect of Dragon and Sword below all shouted. However, as the sword rose and fell, Long Guangzhong was directly beheaded. Soul overflowed. Long Guangzhong lost? Su Yun's heart tightened. This kind of situation was also out of his expectations. Looking at Lu Xiao's condition, he did not seem to have consumed too much energy, but Long Guangzhong was already unable to hold on any longer. The disciples of the sect of Dragon and Sword all rushed over and collected Long Guangzhong's soul. They no longer cared about the so-called hero's discussion of the sword, and carefully protected Long Guangzhong's soul as they hurriedly and anxiously ran out of the mighty Sword Valley. Long Guangzhong's crushing defeat caused everyone present to re-evaluate Lu Xiao. His strength had already exceeded everyone's expectations. It could be said that every time Lu Xiao fought, the strength he revealed would far surpass his previous strength. It was truly unexpected. Su Yun's eyes congealed. He stared at the lady holding the red umbrella, a strange expression appearing on his face. Then, who else can fight against the genius of the heroic sword rankings, Lord Lu Xiao? Seeing that the people below all had different expressions, the venerable Sword Valley's Valley Lord stood up and shouted again. However, the people below were all discussing, but no one dared to go up on stage again. On the contrary, countless people turned to look at the southwest corner. There stood a large group of spirit cultivators dressed in the same clothes. These were the experts of the Cloud Heavenly Palace. Now that even Long Guangzhong had been defeated and his body destroyed, the only one who could contend against Lu Xiao was probably the Sword Sovereign of the Cloud Heavenly Palace. The remaining rogue cultivators were simply courting death. It was just that. The Sword Lord remained motionless, as if he was not interested in the clear sky holy robe at all. He stood at his original spot and waited quietly. The people from the Cloud Heavenly Palace were so anxious that they wished they could rush up to the Sword Discourse Arena right now. The scene became quiet. Even Long Guangzhong had been defeated. Lu Xiao's current might had already shocked the majority of the swordsmen present, and there were very few people who dared to go up and fight with Lu Xiao. Crash! At this moment, a figure suddenly jumped onto the Sword Discourse Arena. Everyone was startled, and immediately looked towards the Sword Discourse Arena. However, to everyone's disappointment, this person was not the Sword Sovereign, but a nameless nobody. A nobody wearing a black Blademaster outfit. Chapter 717. Who is this person? I don't think I've seen him before. Can he do it? Who knows? There will always be people who aren't afraid of death. Since he dares to go up, he might have some skills. I think he is most likely so bold because he covets the clear sky holy robe. Under the drive of greed, anyone would do something stupid. Maybe he thought that after Lu Xiao and Long Guangzhong fought for a while, he had consumed too much energy, so he went up to the stage to reap the benefits. I think he's just thinking too much. The people below whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. Pairs of eyes stared at the man who was standing opposite Lu Xiao on the Broken Sword Discourse Arena. Some looked down on him, some were surprised, some were confused, and some were disdainful in the eyes of many. The person who suddenly appeared on the Sword Discourse Arena was already a pile of minced meat. However, at the Cloud Heavenly Palace's side, the Sword Lord who was standing amongst the disciples was not an ordinary person. The Sword Lord's eyes were filled with astonishment and astonishment. He stared blankly at the man, unable to regain his senses for a long time. Fortunately, the disciples of the Cloud Heavenly Palace were all focused on the Sword Discourse Arena and did not notice the Sword Lord's expression. Otherwise, these disciples would definitely be suspicious. The mighty Sword Valley Lord's gaze landed on the black-clothed man, who was Su Yun. He looked around and left the sword discourse arena without saying a word. Below, Zhong Bai and Meng Qian were startled. Although they did not have much interaction with Su Yun, they still recognized that he was the person who came out of the evil sword forest. It's him? The two of them looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Lu Xiao opened his eyes and sized up the person in front of him. This person was not eye-catching. He wore black clothes and a hood that covered most of his face. There was a sword sheath hanging on his waist and a sword on his back. Whether it was the sword sheath or the sword, they were both extremely ordinary things in this sword world. Who are you? Lu Xiao was not in a hurry to attack Su Yun. He kept Xiao Jian into the desolator and cupped his fists and smiled. A nobody, Su Yun said indifferently. A nobody? This brother, since you are a nobody, why do you want to fight with me for the clear sky holy robe? Do you think that my strength is not enough to enter your eyes? Lu Xiao smiled faintly, but this smile gradually became cold. A nameless person also has a greedy heart. Who wouldn't love a treasure like the clear sky holy robe? Su Yun pulled out the death sword and said indifferently. You've got guts. However, if you want to obtain this treasure, you'll need to have the means to do so. Let's see if you have the means to obtain it. After LV Xiao finished speaking, he lifted the flute to his lips and began to play it. Seeing that, Su Yun activated his profound qi, and like a shuttle, he appeared in front of Lu Xiao in the blink of an eye. Before his voice could even ripple, his sharp sword had already slashed over. So fast, Lu Xiao's heart tightened. He immediately stopped blowing the flute and shook it. Dang! Xiao Jian brandished out and blocked the death sword's blade. The brutal force caused Lu Xiao's arm to go numb. The killing intent on the sword was like a basin of bone-chilling cold water hitting his face. This speed was something even Long Guangzhong could not compare to. Moreover, this power was inexplicably strong. Lu Xiao knew that this guy was not simple. He was not someone Long Guangzhong could compare to. He could not underestimate his opponent. He took a deep breath and pushed his speed to the limit. At the same time, he quickly retracted his sword, wanting to increase the distance between him and Su Yun, using the sound of the flute to restrain him. In terms of speed and strength, Lu Xiao was ashamed of his inferiority, and could only use his magical flute sound to resist. The ripple-like flute sound quickly rippled out, and the miraculous green qi spread out in all directions like ripples, covering everything indiscriminately. Even though Su Yun's figure was extremely fast, it was still difficult for him to dodge, and was attacked by it. Seeing that Su Yun was hit, Lu Xiao's eyes immediately lit up. He did not show any mercy. He stopped the flute sound, pulled out Xiao Jian, and once again rushed towards Su Yun. He rushed forward, as if he wanted to fight with Su Yun. Seeing this, many people around the sword discourse arena were already worried. Previously, when Lu Xiao used this move, the moment the opponent used the profound strength, he would be attacked by the explosion, suffering unspeakable pain. The profound strength was crippled. It could be said that he had completely lost his fighting strength, and was no longer able to contend against Lu Xiao. Now that Su Yun had suffered this move, would he still have the ability to fight against Lu Xiao? If a spirit cultivator couldn't use the profound strength, then what was the difference between him and a salted fish? However, before Lu Xiao's ruthless and crafty Xiao Jian could even slash at Su Yun, it was blocked by a slender black sword. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. The entire audience was stunned. This speed? How could it still be so fast, could it be? Lu Xiao was shocked and stared at Su Yun. However, Su Yun was not affected by the strange qi in the slightest, and continued to dance with his sword. His sword was still as fast as ever, and his strength was still as fierce as ever, without the slightest change from before. Su Yun attacked quickly a few times, and Lu Xiao was immediately forced to retreat step by step, unable to resist. Although the profound strength on the sword was gone, and its power had dropped greatly, Su Yun's speed made up for its power, and it was so fast that it was suffocating. Hua! The crowd below immediately burst into an uproar. He did not urge the profound strength. With just speed and strength, he had forcefully forced this expert of the heroic sword list to retreat. Then, how brilliant was this person's swordsmanship? Was his previous speed the same as it was now, completely dependent on his body technique, and not the amplification of the profound strength? How much time and sweat did one have to spend to reach such a realm? For a moment, everyone lowered their heads and whispered, guessing the identity of this person. Lu Xiao was also forced to retreat, almost to the edge of the sword discourse arena. The qi that covered Su Yun's body did not disappear after it was released. Lu Xiao had to continuously increase the profound qi to maintain its existence, otherwise, it would quickly evaporate into the air. Seeing that the qi was useless against Su Yun, Lu Xiao had no choice but to give up. He activated a magic treasure, and an explosion sounded out between the two of them, forcefully separating the two of them. Su Yun retreated a few steps and accumulated his profound strength, while Lu Xiao jumped backwards and flew into the air. Following that, his body started to spin quickly. The Xiao sword was also danced by him like the wind, and streams of strange and sharp sword qi slowly rose around him. A different profound qi. Su Yun, who was below, instantly felt the change in Lu Xiao. This time, the profound qi was even thicker, sharper, and more ferocious. It was definitely not the profound qi that Lu Xiao was able to possess before. In a short period of time, to be able to make his profound qi suddenly change and become stronger, he could only rely on the magic treasure. However, Lu Xiao was different from others, and he did not have any signs of activating the magic treasure. Maybe many people thought that he had activated some kind of profound skill, but Su Yun could not think of any profound skill that would have such an effect. After all, the activation of a profound skill was built on the foundation of the profound qi. What kind of thing could change his foundation? Su Yun's gaze shifted, and landed below the sword discourse arena. The woman holding the red umbrella, Qin Hong San. At this moment, she was staring intently at the person on top of the sword discourse arena with a serious and solemn expression. The red umbrella covered most of her appearance, and the people behind her could not see her expression. She held onto the umbrella handle with both hands, and her eyes seemed to be glued to Lu Xiao's body. What kind of strength did Lu Xiao have? Su Yun had already seen through it in the tavern. His strength was definitely not what he was displaying now. It was definitely Qin Hong San who was secretly helping him, and the power that Lu Xiao was using now was extremely similar to the power that Qin Hong San had used outside the tavern. Although he was not sure how Qin Hong San did it, Su Yun was unwavering in his guess that Qin Hong San had secretly made a move. It was just that the surroundings of the sword discourse arena had already been sealed by the mighty Sword Valley Lord, so the profound skill inside could not attack the outside of the sword discourse arena. Furthermore, if they were to suddenly attack the surrounding audience, it would definitely incur the wrath of the crowd, so directly attacking Qin Hong San was obviously not possible. Then, the only way was to find out the connection between Qin Hong San and Lu Xiao. With Qin Hong San's help, it was impossible for Lu Xiao to obtain her power out of thin air. There must be something that could bridge it. As Su Yun thought about it, he distanced himself from Lu Xiao. With one hand, he secretly defended the space bag at his waist, preparing to take out the 7th-tier Imperial equipment at any time. At this moment, Lu Xiao's entire body was wrapped in a strong wind, like a tornado. The surrounding air currents moved along with it. It was extremely terrifying. The shattered sword discourse arena was swaying. A large amount of sand was sucked in. The surrounding barrier was also swaying. It could be seen how terrifying Lu Xiao's move was. Su Yun stepped down, stabilized his body, stared at Lu Xiao, and moved his fingers. So, 3 mother swords flew out from the sword sheath. Tribulation Fire, Immortal Mystical Scarlet Blood Sword, Desolator. Of course, LV Xiao only saw 2 swords. The Tribulation Fire Sword and the Immortal Mystical Scarlet Blood Sword merged together, leading thousands of sub-swords to transform into an Iron Sword Dragon, striking LV Xiao head-on, while the Desolator Sword activated its unique invisibility effect, leading over 100 sub-swords to quietly approach from the side. Ding-ling! At this moment, a crisp sound came from within the tornado. Su Yun looked over, only to see Lu Xiao holding on to Xiao Jian and waving it at the tornado in front of him. The sword disrupted the tornado's rotation and trajectory, causing a large amount of gas to explode out, shooting out in all directions like a goddess scattering flowers. The Iron Dragon was attacked, and the sub-swords inside trembled rapidly. The Desolator that was quietly approaching was also affected, and its power was greatly reduced. When it got close to the tornado, it was no longer able to pierce into it and injure Lu Xiao. Su Yun immediately activated the 7th-tier Imperial equipment. A grayish-white chi cover rose up, blocking the chaotic explosion. The entire sword discourse arena was shattered by the explosion, causing smoke to fill the air. Its power was so terrifying that it caused the surrounding people to be flabbergasted. What a strong, profound strength, Su Yun thought. Lu Xiao had fought a few battles previously, and had already consumed a lot of his profound strength. How could he still use such a terrifying power now? Although it was difficult for the sharp sword to contend against the terrifying explosive chi, the 7th-tier Imperial equipment was not an ordinary item. No matter how dense the explosive chi was, Su Yun was still as unmoving as a mountain, standing steadily. He did not consume much profound strength to activate the Imperial equipment, but if Lu Xiao were to use profound chi like this, he would not be able to hold on for long. Since that was the case, Su Yun was not in a hurry to attack Lu Xiao, but continued to wait in place. As expected, after such a fierce attack, seeing that he could not do anything to Su Yun, Lu Xiao became anxious, and immediately urged the terrifying tornado to rush towards Su Yun. He took a step closer, and the suction force on Su Yun's body immediately increased by a few points, causing his footsteps to become more and more difficult to stabilize. Looking at Lu Xiao when he rushed towards Su Yun, he actually gathered the surrounding wind towards Xiao Jian, as though he wanted to determine the outcome of the competition with one sword strike. That terrifying sword strike was already very close. Chapter 7:18. The people below held their breaths and stared intently at the sword discourse arena. Especially this attack. Almost no one dared to make a sound. They could only hear the whistling sound of the wind within the sword discourse arena. Closer, closer and closer. Facing this kind of destructive attack, would the defensive magic treasure in Su Yun's hand be able to withstand it? Everyone secretly swallowed their saliva and focused their attention on watching. Bang! An earth-shattering sound suddenly exploded from within the sword discourse arena. The terrifying tornado seemed to have engulfed Su Yun, and the moment the tornado touched Su Yun, LV Xiao also fiercely threw Xiao Jian, who was wrapped in the wind, towards Su Yun. Dong Cha. With Su Yun as the center, the ground instantly shattered, like a collapsing stone slab. It split into pieces. The wind fiercely squeezed the Imperial equipment chi cover, and those that could not squeeze in all crashed into the ground. The barrier protecting the sword discourse arena had already been shaken by the terrifying and tyrannical wind, as though it could split at any time. The surrounding spectators were shocked by LV Zhao's world-shaking attack to the point of retreating, afraid that the power would break through the barrier and affect them. Only Qin Hong San did not take half a step back. She was still like a statue, standing around the sword discourse arena, holding an umbrella and looking at LV Zhao. The wind inside the sword discourse arena wreaked havoc. Sand filled the sky. Su Yun's figure was almost instantly engulfed by the tornado. No one could find half of his figure. nor could they see the scene of the fight inside the sword discourse arena. Other than the raging sound of the sword chi, there was nothing else. That guy is dead, right? He should be dead. How could an ordinary person be able to withstand LV Zhao's attack? If it was me, I would not be able to withstand this move. That means LV Zhao won again. I never thought that LV Zhao would actually be so powerful. It seems like he has been lucky all these years. That's right, the strength he has displayed so far is simply not something that can be obtained by an existence ranked 17th on the heroic sword list. I think his strength is more than enough to enter the top 10. I'm afraid he can even compete with the person ranked first. Yes. The surrounding spectators discussed animatedly. Regardless of whether it was the powerful spirit cultivator or the weak spirit cultivator, they all gave their own opinions and evaluations of the current LV Zhao, but it was very uniform. Everyone gave him a very high evaluation, and the surprise and shock that LV Zhao had brought them today was undoubtedly huge. The mist gradually dispersed, and everyone anxiously locked their gazes onto the broken sword discourse arena once again, including the sword sovereign, the mighty Sword Valley Master, Zhong Bai and the others, as well as many heroes hidden in the crowd. However, before the fog had completely dispersed, a bright white light suddenly burst out. Everyone held their breath. The bright white light dispersed the gray fog and gradually weakened. Then, two figures appeared in his line of sight. One of the figures held a thin sword in one hand, motionless and in a posture of attacking. The other figure held a small flag in one hand and a snow-white sword in the other. The sword had already pierced through the opponent's chest, and bright red blood was slowly dripping down the lustrous sword. What? The audience burst into an uproar. What's going on? Everyone was confused, and they all cried out in alarm. However, the people inside the platform ignored the reactions of the surrounding people and began to move again. The person holding onto the snow-white sword was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. The hand holding onto the sword twisted, the profound chi passed through the sword and tore the wound on the other party's chest even bigger. The imperial equipment on his body was like paper, it had long been pierced through by the sharp sword, and was unable to protect his body at all. In fact, the imperial equipment also needed the support of the profound strength. Lu Xiao had used all of his profound qi in that sword strike. He did not expect Su Yun to counterattack at this moment, so much so that he did not even have time to activate the imperial equipment before it was broken by Su Yun. Ugh! Lu Xiao's entire body trembled, the intense pain caused his face to contort. At this moment, his mind was completely blank. How could Su Yun block his terrifying attack? And how could he counterattack so quickly? All of this had exceeded his expectations. However, what was even more intense than this blankness was Lu Xiao's anger. How was this possible? He was a dignified expert of the heroic sword list. How could he lose to a nameless nobody? Once he lost, he would definitely not be able to gain a foothold in the sword world in the future, and his reputation would be completely ruined. He could not lose, he absolutely could not lose, no matter what, he could not lose. Thinking about it, Lu Xiao's twisted face became even more intense. He raised his sword, wanting to slash Su Yun again. But before the slender Xiao Jian could even get close, Su Yun kicked him and forced him back. The dense profound energy on his feet was like a sledgehammer, bombarding his internal organs, and even dispersing the profound qi in his qi meridian. Lu Xiao was caught off guard, his entire body trembled, and he spat out bright red blood. He fell backwards and solidly fell to the ground. He anxiously wanted to get up, but Su Yun rushed over again and kicked his head with all his might. Bang! He flew out again and landed beside the barrier. He was already in a daze. Qin Hong San, who was standing at the side of the sword discourse arena, also trembled and took a few steps back. She put away her red umbrella and looked at Su Yun in shock. It was unknown if it was intentional or not, but Su Yun's kick just now had coincidentally broken the link between her and Lu Xiao. Not only that, it had also scattered the profound qi in her body. After losing Qin Hongsan's support, the tyrannical profound qi around Lu Xiao's body immediately retreated. His strength dropped drastically, and he completely lost the ability to contend against Su Yun. His entire body trembled as he held on to Xiao Jian, trying his best to stand up. Looking at Su Yun, who was walking towards him step by step, Lu Xiao's eyes finally revealed fear. He knew that it was impossible for him to defeat Su Yun, but if he continued to fight, his body would only be destroyed and his cultivation would be lost. But if he didn't fight, could he surrender? Furthermore, if he surrendered, the other party might not allow it. Furthermore, once he surrendered, Lu Xiao would definitely lose his reputation and be ridiculed by the people of the sword world. He would also be removed from the heroic sword list, and all the glory he had obtained would also vanish into thin air because of this. Thinking of this, Lu Xiao was in complete despair. His entire body trembled violently, and the fear in his eyes became stronger and stronger. Lu Xiao, surrender. At this moment, a voice came from below the sword discourse arena. Lu Xiao looked towards the source of the voice and realized that the person who spoke was Qin Hongsan. You! What did you say? Lu Xiao was stunned. I told you to surrender. Her face was solemn as she held onto the red umbrella tightly and shouted at Lu Xiao. The mighty Sword Valley Lord did not say that surrendering was not allowed in this competition, but this was already the tacit agreement of the people of the sword world. Many people would rather die in battle than surrender, but this did not mean that it was impossible. As soon as he said this, the surrounding experts all looked at Lu Xiao. Surrender? To the people of the sword world, this was a great humiliation. Lu Xiao's expression also changed drastically. Surrender? This thought lingered in his mind. However, with so many people watching, if he were to surrender here, how would he have the face to stand in this world? Su Yun raised his head. Under the hazy cloak, a pair of slightly red eyes looked at him, and then continued to walk towards Lu Xiao with his sword in hand. Seeing that, Lu Xiao's expression became more and more flustered, and the hand holding the sword also trembled. His cultivation was actually not high, but to be able to rank on the heroic sword board, it was all thanks to his dual cultivation partner, Qin Hongsan's help in the dark. No one discovered this secret, and every time Lu Xiao fought with someone, it was actually 2 against 1, so Lu Xiao won time and time again, and no one could stop him. But now, he had already lost the connection with Qin Hongsan, and was unable to borrow Qin Hongsan's power for a while. Without Qin Hongsan's help, he did not dare to fight with his opponent anymore. Lu Xiao, what are you hesitating for? Surrender quickly. Surrender. Seeing that Lu Xiao was still hesitating, Qin Hongsan immediately shouted again. What nonsense are you talking about? If I surrender, how will I gain a foothold in the future? How will I have the face to walk in the sword world? Lu Xiao's face was pale white as he clenched his teeth and said, You've lost your physical body and your cultivation has been destroyed. If you don't have your cultivation, who would look up to you? Qin Hongsan clenched his teeth and said in a low voice, This world only recognizes strength. With strength you will be respected, without strength, you will only be an ant on the ground. Lu Xiao, do you still not understand this logic? Quickly surrender, protect your physical body, protect your cultivation. Hearing that, Lu Xiao immediately hesitated. He looked at Su Yun, who was walking over step by step, and involuntarily retreated. Even if I am willing to surrender, he might not let me go. If I surrender, and he still doesn't let me go, then wouldn't I have nothing left? He will definitely allow you to surrender. His goal is the clear sky holy robe, not you. Hurry up and surrender. Qin Hongsan was still trying to persuade him. Lu Xiao was stunned for a long time and finally, a strange word came out of his mouth. As the sound of his voice faded, everyone's eyes widened. Could it be? Lu Xiao really planned to surrender? Su Yun held onto his sword. His pale face did not change much, nor did he reveal any surprised expression. He quietly looked at Lu Xiao, not moved by his and Qin Hong San's words in the slightest. I surrender. Just then, Lu Xiao spoke in a voice that only he and Su Yun could hear. Su Yun stopped in his tracks, raised his head slightly, and looked at him with blood-red eyes. I surrender. Please. Don't kill me. He lowered his head, took a few steps forward, and was about to kneel down, as if he was begging for Su Yun's pity. However, just as he was about to kneel down, his body exploded, gathering all the strength in his body. He rushed towards Su Yun. Xiao Jian transformed into a dark green bolt of lightning in the air, slicing straight at Su Yun's neck. Sneak attack. Su Yun's eyes turned cold. No. Qin Hong San, who was below, was already screaming miserably. Lu Xiao's plan was very good. He used his conversation with Qin Hong San to attract Su Yun's attention, then pretended to agree to Qin Hong San's suggestion, and launched a sneak attack on him. As long as he won against Su Yun, Qin Hong San would go up on stage to fight with him, and he could surrender to Qin Hong San. The two of them were dual cultivation partners, so Lu Xiao would definitely not lose face if he surrendered to Qin Hong San. Furthermore, he had already fought for several rounds in a row, and was already at the end of his tether. No one would say anything if he surrendered at this time. But now it was different, and at this moment, Lu Xiao had completely ignored one thing: his speed. It was simply incomparable to Su Yun. Compared to Su Yun, it was simply a world of difference. Just as Lu Xiao was about to launch a sneak attack, a cold light had already leaped over Xiao Jian and pierced through Lu Xiao's neck, tearing apart his artery. A head flew into the air. Chapter 719. Pudong. The head fell to the ground, and fresh blood flowed out in all directions. The headless corpse in front of Su Yun also fell to the ground. The shattered sword discourse arena regained its calm. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. Everyone was flabbergasted, their eyes wide open as they looked at the man in the black cloak on the sword discourse arena. Lu Xiao had lost. He had been beheaded in public, and his defeat had been so complete and straightforward. His soul flowed out of the corpse and floated in the air, flying towards Qin Hong Fan. Qin Hong Fan's calm face could no longer maintain its calm. His face twisted. He clenched his teeth and glared at Su Yun, the red umbrella in his hand opened and closed, sucking in Lu Xiao's soul. Su Yun kept his imperial equipment, held onto the Lotus Star Sword, and stared at Qin Hong Fan. If it's an open and above-board battle, I, Su, have nothing to say if I lose. If it's an open and above-board battle, I, Su, will look down on it. There are many talented people on the heroic sword list, but you two scum are a disgrace. Su Yun said indifferently. When these words were spoken, many people were confused, but Qin Hong Fan understood what he was talking about. However, Su Yun's words had already made some people understand. What is this person talking about? Shame of scum? Is he talking about Lu Xiao and Qin Hong Fan? Perhaps the battle just now wasn't as simple as we saw it. The crowd discussed amongst themselves, and their eyes were filled with suspicion as they looked at Qin Hong Fan. Qin Hong Fan looked left and right. His expression was ugly, but he did not dare say anything. He could only clench his teeth and shout at Su Yun. Who are you? Su Yun. He raised his sword. Welcome to challenge me. But I hope it's fair and square. Good. If you want to challenge, I'll grant your wish. Qin Hong Fan was furious. He actually jumped onto the stage and landed in front of everyone. Qin Hong Fan finally couldn't help but make his move. Her actions immediately caused the crowd to recover from their shock. Some of the warlike people raised the sharp swords in their hands and shouted with all their might. The cheers continued, and the entire mighty Sword Valley was in an uproar. Lu Xiao's body had been destroyed by Su Yun. As Lu Zhao's dual cultivation partner, how could Qin Hong San let this matter rest? This battle would definitely be a battle to the death. Although Qin Hong San's ranking was lower than Lu Zhao's, Qin Hong San rarely made a move, and no one understood her cultivation level. This time, she might not be able to hide it. Once Qin Hong San got on stage, he did not waste any more words with Su Yun and immediately made his move. The red umbrella in her hand opened, and a gust of wind blew out from the umbrella, straight towards Su Yun. Her body swayed, and her figure became illusory, as though she had disappeared with the gust of wind. Just that, a sharp killing intent instantly enveloped Su Yun's heart. He was secretly on guard, activating the 7th tier Imperial equipment. A grayish-white chi cover enveloped his body. Just as the energy shield rose, a red light streaked across his eyes and was enveloped by the energy shield. It was the umbrella sword that Qin Hong San had hidden inside the umbrella. What incredible speed! But in terms of speed, Su Yun was not slow either. After blocking Qin Hong Fan's attack, the chi cover instantly disappeared, and the Lotus Star Sword swept up a sword image that looked like a blooming lotus, swallowing Qin Hong Fan. Clang clang clang, the sword shadows struck Qin Hong San's pink clothes, but it was as if they were striking a terrifying piece of iron. Other than a large amount of sparks flying out, they were unable to advance at all and injure his flesh and bones. Imperial equipment. It was the Imperial equipment again. Furthermore, with such a dense profound strength, he could not even leave a single mark on the clothes. It could be seen that the defense was astonishing, and the grade of the Imperial equipment was probably within the 10th grade. Su Yun's eyes congealed. The news of Wu Xinzi being killed had already spread to many realms. The enmity between the True Devil sect and the Supreme sect had been established, and the relationship between the two forces had become more and more tense. Many people from various forces raised their heads and watched, adopting a wait-and-see attitude towards all of this. However, there were also people with unique vision, who stood out at this critical juncture, calling for everyone to join hands and support the True Devil sect, to fight against the Supreme sect together. However, the people who called for the fight against the Supreme sect were all weak people. No one from the Supreme expert of the big sects stood out, and their cries were just like a wave in the ocean, completely useless. As for the empty space that was previously in an uproar with the Supreme sect, he also maintained his silence and acted as a neutral party. He did not care about the grudges between the Supreme sect and the True Devil sect. Perhaps many people thought that the happiest person at this moment was to be emptied, because the True Devil sect had successfully attracted all of the Supreme sect's hatred onto himself. They might be able to catch their breath after emptying out. However, all of this was just an illusion seen by those who did not understand the Supreme sect. Inside the True Devil sect, Standing Demon found the second elder and the second demon and reported the recent movements of the Supreme sect to them. When the two devils heard this, their faces turned serious. Without hesitation, they charged into the cultivation grounds of the Octagon Aniseed and reported the current situation to him. The people from the Supreme sect have already moved. In the training grounds, Octagon Aniseed, who was resting against a rock, rubbed his sleepy eyes and asked the two devils in front of him. That's right, for this operation they did not send too many experts, but they sent a group of extremely fanatical members of the Supreme sect. There are about 20,000 of them, and they are rushing towards the True Devil realm. I'm afraid that most of them are here for my True Devil sect. The two devils said worriedly, I have already asked the great clan elder Yuanimo to inform the sect master of this matter, but the sect master still wishes for me to hear your opinion. Sigh, sigh, sigh. It's really troublesome for me to deal with such matters all the time. There's nothing we can do about it. After all, you are the vice sect leader. The other party suddenly sent 20,000 people, and all of them are fanatical believers who don't care about their lives. What should we do? Octagon Aniseed laid on the ground, one hand supporting his chin as he pondered. The two devils patiently stood at the side and waited. After an unknown period of time, "Got it!" Octagon Aniseed sat up, clapped his hands, and said hurriedly. The two devils hurriedly bowed. "Please give me your instructions, Vice Sect Leader. We might as well surrender." Octagon Aniseed laughed. As the sound of his voice faded, the training grounds became silent. After a long time, no one made a sound. The eyes of the demons stared straight at Octagon Aniseed without any trace of politeness. Octagon Aniseed's smile was a little stiff. Seeing that the two devils did not have any reaction, he scratched the back of his head and laughed dryly. He sighed and said, all right, I'll think about it again." Think about it again. The two devils still didn't say anything. Just like that, after an unknown period of time, Octagon Aniseed finally raised his head and continued to speak. "With our current strength, fighting against the Supreme Sect alone can be said to be like hitting a rock with an egg. Therefore, fighting them head-on is obviously not feasible. We can only take other paths. What do you think, Vice Sect Leader?" The two devils spoke again. "Pull in more reinforcements, join forces with them, and fight against the Supreme Sect together with us," Octagon Aniseed said without hesitation. However, the two devils shook their heads and said in a low voice, "I'm afraid that's not possible. The Supreme Sect's strength is monstrous, not many powers dare to offend him, and the powers that fight against the Supreme Sect for us are even fewer. In such a short period of time, I'm afraid no one will stand on our side. I know, with your 3-inch tongues, you really can't pull in more reinforcements, but the heavens will never give up. Sometimes what the tongue can't do, can be done with the weapon. What the weapon can't do, can be done with the tongue. Those powers want to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, watch the success and failure. We will force them to join us. That way, wouldn't we be able to fight against the Supreme Sect?" Octagon Aniseed laughed. "Force?" The two devils frowned. "Vice Sect Leader's meaning is for my true devil sect to use force to coerce other forces, and force them to fight against the Supreme Sect with us. Are you stupid?" Octagon Aniseed rolled his eyes. "Now that we can't even protect ourselves, how can we have the strength to do that? Furthermore, if we don't do well, we will create a new enemy for ourselves. How can we do something like this that only an idiot would do?" "Then, what does Vice Sect Leader mean?" "Of course it's under the Supreme Sect's banner," Octagon Aniseed whispered. When the two devils heard this, they immediately understood. Octagon Aniseed was planning to use underhanded methods, using the Supreme Sect's banner to provoke the other sects, forcing them into a desperate situation and forcing them to join hands with the true Devil Sect. This idea is not bad, but in such a short period of time, which power should we attack? And what should we do? If the other party finds out that we are pretending to be the Supreme Sect, what should we do? The two devils said in a serious tone. If we only send our true Devil Sect people to use the illusion technique to transform into the Supreme Sect people's appearance, then the chances of us being seen through are too high. But if we were to let the real Supreme Sect people go, what would happen? Octagon Aniseed smiled, looking at the confusion that flashed past the two demons' eyes. He continued. The main method that the Supreme Sect people rely on to absorb disciples is the limitless profound chi. After cultivating this profound chi, and then being instilled with the Supreme Divine Tao's concept, no matter who it is, they will fall deeply into the Supreme Sect, unable to extricate themselves. But our method is simple and crude. We can directly use the possession technique to transfer our souls into the Supreme Sect people's bodies, and from there we can control the Supreme Sect people's bodies. Our true Devil Sect's possession technique can be said to be the most exquisite possession technique in the entire true Devil realm. It can quickly switch souls and transfer them between bodies. Right now, aren't there 20,000 Supreme Sect disciples rushing towards the true Devil realm? Immediately go and make the arrangements, mobilize all the experts in the sect, leave the sect to stop them, and capture these 20,000 people at all costs. If they resist strongly, then kill them, but remember, you must preserve your physical body, do you understand? The entire sect is attacking. When the two devils heard this, they were immediately alarmed. Their indifferent faces also changed. Vice sect leader, if we were to use all our strength to attack these 20,000 people, what would happen if there was an ambush? And does the true devil sect not need protection? If these 20,000 people cannot be taken care of, the true devil sect will definitely be devoured by the supreme sect. At that time, won't your worries still happen? We must take care of these 20,000 people in the shortest amount of time possible, and we cannot let the news leak out. Otherwise, all of our plans will not work. Octagon Aniseed shrugged. When the two devils heard this, they opened their mouths, but in the end, they nodded and immediately went to do it. Chapter 720. Clang, clang, clang. The densely packed sword images dazzled the eyes of the people below the stage. At this moment, red flowers danced in the sky inside the sword discourse arena, and the sword images shuttled back and forth between the red flowers, almost occupying the entire space of the sword discourse arena. Facing such a dense sword attack, even a god would not be able to dodge it. However, even if they couldn't dodge, the two of them were completely unharmed in the face of such a sword attack. With the protection of the 7th tier Imperial equipment and the protection of the Wanhua seed, Su Yun was not afraid of any of his opponent's sword moves. Qin Hong San was not an ordinary person either. Her red clothes had a terrifying defense, and even with Su Yun's sharp sword, it was difficult to break through her defense. Su Yun could not hurt Qin Hong San, and Qin Hong San could not do anything to Su Yun either. Both of them had Imperial equipment with extremely strong defensive capabilities, and sharp blades were extremely difficult to break, unless they had sharp blades with terrifying destructive power. Su Yun knew that every single one of the mother swords in his hands were extraordinary, but his cultivation was not enough to release all of the power of the mother swords. As a result, the two of them could only attack each other's Imperial equipment to consume the opponent's profound chi, break the Imperial equipment, and then kill them. Right now, they were competing to see who had more profound chi. The sword chi that was like a violent storm crazily tore apart the barrier around the sword discourse arena. The barrier was like a lonely boat in the ocean, crazily shaking, and the cracks on it grew larger and larger. From the looks of it, it seemed like it would break at any time. Seeing this, the mighty Sword Valley Lord's expression changed slightly. He nodded to the people from the mighty Sword Valley beside him, and immediately, two people from the mighty Sword Valley rushed to the Sword Discourse Arena and landed on both sides of the Sword Discourse Arena, channeling their chi towards the barrier. As for the mighty Sword Valley Lord himself, he stood up and shouted, "The destructive power of the two heroes fighting is beyond my imagination. I'm afraid that this barrier won't be able to hold on for long, so please quickly retreat to the outside of the valley to watch the sword discussion." As soon as he finished speaking, the people present did not hesitate at all and immediately dispersed in a scattered manner. Looking at the intensity of the battle, one could tell that the mighty Sword Valley Lord was not just trying to scare them. After everyone left, the surroundings of the Sword Discourse Arena were completely empty. Everyone soared into the sky and looked at the valley. As expected, the two of them had only fought fiercely for less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, and the ruthless sword chi immediately tore the barrier around the Sword Discourse Arena into pieces. The raging sword chi inside was like a flood that had broken through a river bank and instantly gushed out in all directions, shattering the ground, valley walls, formation platforms, and so on. When the people above saw this scene, all of them secretly broke out in cold sweat. If they were to stay there, not to mention whether or not they could block the attack, even if they could block it, they would suffer a lot of injuries. After fighting for a long time, the two of them seemed to be unwilling to continue. Both of them had Imperial equipment, and their profound strength was astonishing, so they were evenly matched. There was no point in continuing to fight, so they could only change their fighting methods. Su Yun distanced himself from it, while urging the imperial equipment. He used the limitless sword arts, sizing up the flying sword and circling around Qin Hong San. Qin Hong San urged the clothes on his body, forcefully pushing forward. He pulled out the umbrella sword and slashed at Su Yun. The profound strength on the umbrella sword was like an open red umbrella, flying towards him in the shape of a scattered flower. Continuing to fight would be extremely disadvantageous to him. Furthermore, even if he defeated Qin Hong San, if another expert were to challenge him, it would be difficult for him to hold on for long. It was not that Su Yun did not secretly pay attention to it when he was below the stage. There were countless experts here. The Sword Lord and Long Guangzhong were not the best, and it was even more impossible for Lu Xiao and Qin Hong San to be the best. If he consumed a lot of energy with Qin Hong San, what else could he use to fight against his next opponent? Furthermore, there was still the mighty Sword Valley Lord, who was waiting for him at the side. He would never believe that a guy who had protected the clear sky holy robe for so many years, and even lost his own son's life, would hand over such a divine object to someone else at this time. Thinking about it, Su Yun secretly turned his gaze and looked around. The people around him had already retreated far away. His gaze unconsciously fell on the people of Cloud Heavenly Palace in the distance. At this moment, the Sword Lord was also looking at him. A strange light flashed past Su Yun's eyes. He then turned his neck and continued to fight with Qin Hong San. The two of them crazily danced with their swords, and the sword shadows almost engulfed the two of them. The people beside them were dazzled and didn't dare to breathe. This battle was truly exquisite. However, what was even more shocking was Su Yun's speed. From the start of the battle until now, he had not eaten a single one of his opponent's attacks. On the other hand, Qin Hong San had almost fallen to the ground from Su Yun's sword strikes. From this, it could be seen that Su Yun's strength was still above Qin Hong San's. Qin Hong San's face was filled with anger. After being beaten to such a sorry state by Su Yun, he was naturally unhappy. His attacks became even more ferocious, completely different from the quiet virgin from before. I've never seen such an expert before. With his strength, he will definitely be able to rank in the top 10 of the heroic sword list. More than just the top 10? I'm afraid it's even possible for him to be in the top 3. Previously, he had killed Lu Xiao, and now that he is able to fight Qin Hong San to a draw, his strength is at least close to the Spirit Emperor. Spirit Emperor? That's really incredible. The surrounding people discussed animatedly, commenting on Su Yun, praising and exclaiming non-stop. Just as they let out such a sigh, a muffled sound came out from the other side. Su Yun was careless, and did not have the time to dodge Qin Hong San's sword attack. His entire body was struck by the sword, and the profound chi protecting his body was in chaos, and he flew out, directly crashing into the distant valley wall. The disciples of Cloud Heavenly Palace at the side hurriedly dodged. However, just as the Sword Lord was about to dodge, he saw Su Yun, who had crawled out from the valley wall, rush out again. He brushed past the Sword Lord's shoulder like the wind and rushed towards Qin Hong San once again. However, the moment he passed through the Sword Lord, a few words floated into the Sword Lord's ears. "Cover me." The voice came so suddenly that the Sword Lord didn't even have time to react. When these 3 words rang out, he was stunned for a moment and frowned. He did not understand Su Yun's actions. However, his life was currently in the hands of Octagon Aniseed. How could he dare to disobey Su Yun, the demon lord of the true devil sect? Others did not recognize Su Yun, but he was very clear. That mystical sword sheath was still fresh in his memory. The Sword Lord did not dare hesitate, and immediately alerted the other disciples of the Cloud Heavenly Palace. He then quietly activated the profound strength, and slightly approached the place where Su Yun and Qin Hong San were fighting, preparing to take action at any time. Although he did not know what Su Yun was going to do, he had to respond positively. Could it be that Su Yun was unable to defeat Qin Hong San, and was preparing to borrow the power of the Sword Lord to fight? If that was the case, then it would be a violation of the Sword Discourse competition. If that was the case, the Cloud Heavenly Palace would be violating the rules of the Hero's Discourse Sword and the rules of the Sword World. The Sword Lord and the others would definitely become the target of public criticism. In this way, the situation would not be good. However, if he did not do as Su Yun said, he, the Sword Lord, would still not be able to escape death. Thinking of this, the Sword Lord had no choice but to gather his strength. Su Yun got close to Qin Hong San once again, grabbed onto the strange black sword, and unleashed a torrential barrage of attacks at it. This time, Su Yun did not hold back at all. He immediately kept the Imperial equipment and changed into the Death Sword and the Lotus Star Sword, one black and one white, like two bolts of lightning, shot out from his hands and smashed onto Qin Hong San's body. Qin Hong San immediately felt the pressure increase. At this moment, Su Yun seemed to have completely given up on defense, and turned from defense to attack, looking like he would not rest until he died. It was extremely strange. From the looks of it, he seemed to want to end the battle quickly. Could it be that his profound chi could no longer keep up? Qin Hong San's eyes congealed. She was not moved by Su Yun's berserk attack, but instead continued to defend. Not only did she defend, she even gave up on a portion of her profound chi attack towards Su Yun, and maintained all of it on the Imperial equipment on her body. From the looks of it, she was planning to go against Su Yun, and not fight and continue to fight. Qin Hong San's thoughts were indeed correct. Su Yun had fought with Lu Xiao before, so the profound chi was probably not much. Even if it was not less than Qin Hong San's, it was not much more than hers, and the reason why Qin Hong San went up on stage was most likely to take revenge for Lu Xiao, so he did not think much about seizing the Clear Sky Holy Robe. But Su Yun was different. He went up on stage for the Clear Sky Holy Robe. If he fought with Qin Hong San for too long and consumed too much profound energy, then even if he did not lose this round, he would definitely lose in the next round, so he could only end the battle quickly in order to win. Qin Hong San's battle of attrition, to most people, was in line with the time and people. However, she obviously did not understand Su Yun. He also did not understand. Ever since Su Yun stepped into the Mighty Sword Valley, he had never cared about the people here. From start to finish, he only had one goal. That was the Clear Sky Holy Robe. Whiz! A bolt of lightning suddenly shot up into the sky. Qin Hong San was startled. The speed of the lightning was too fast. She did not even have the time to see if it was a sword or not. But no matter what, even if it was Su Yun's attack, it would not be able to break through his Imperial equipment. However, just as this thought appeared in Qin Hong San's mind, a huge hand suddenly reached out from behind him, followed by an uproar from the surrounding crowd. Qin Hong San's entire body trembled. Before he could even react, he felt his body being ruthlessly restrained by a large hand, and his entire body was being suppressed by an enormous and shocking force. What was going on? Qin Hong San turned his head to look, only to see an incomparably huge giant standing behind him. Puppet equipment. Her heart was beating wildly. The giant's eyes were blood-red as he stared at himself coldly, causing one's hair to stand on end. The devil chi around his body flowed out of his body like tentacles and wrapped around him. Qin Hong San's heart skipped a beat. He immediately felt that something was wrong and immediately urged his chi to struggle. But at this moment, a shadow suddenly flashed past her and leaped over. Qin Hong San anxiously looked over, only to see that Su Yun, who was fighting with him, had actually given up on him, and directly rushed towards the statue in the center of the Sword Discourse Arena. The Clear Sky Holy Robe. Chapter 721. What? Qin Hong San's eyes, which had been calm the entire time, immediately widened. His expression froze, and he could not believe what he had just seen. Su Yun was actually heading straight for the Clear Sky Holy Robe. What was this place? This was the Mighty Sword Valley. Not to mention that there were many experts in the Mighty Sword Valley, now that the hero was discussing the sword, who knew how many experts from all over the sword world had gathered here. By doing this, wasn't Su Yun looking down on the Mighty Sword Valley and the experts of the world? This was simply a naked provocation to the experts around him? Everyone was stunned. Perhaps no one thought that Su Yun would do such a thing. Qin Hong San was tightly restrained by the giant's hand, and was unable to break free for a while Su Yun used all his strength to get close to the statue, raised his cold sword, and slashed it into pieces. Crack! The statue immediately shattered into pieces, and the clear sky holy robe on the statue immediately rolled down along with the rubble. Su Yun did not dare hesitate, and immediately picked up the clear sky holy robe. This action of his was like a steel needle, piercing everyone's heart. Ah! The Mighty Sword Valley Lord immediately roared in anger. How dare you? How dare you break the rules of the hero's discourse of the sword and seize the saint robe without permission? Unforgivable! With a roar, the Mighty Sword Valley Lord and a group of experts rushed towards Su Yun without hesitation. Boom, boom, boom! In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, several more bolts of lightning shot into the sky and then fell down. Just as the Mighty Sword Valley Lord was rushing towards Su Yun, several terrifying devil bone giants appeared once again. They were like walls, blocking the path of the people from the Mighty Sword Valley. Seeing that, Su Yun took the clear sky holy robe and ran. Seeing Su Yun's actions, how could the spirit cultivators that were gathered in all directions let him escape? Immediately, all of them roared and rushed towards Su Yun. The reason why everyone came here was because of the clear sky holy robe. Now that this treasure was forcefully snatched away by a nameless nobody in front of everyone, how could they be willing? Streams of killing intent surged towards Su Yun's head like ferocious beasts. There was no suspense. Su Yun had already become the target of public criticism. However, just as the surrounding spirit cultivator were about to move, the sword sovereign also moved. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "Audacious thief, breaking the rules of the sword conference and stealing treasures, see if I don't destroy you." With that said, he brandished his treasure sword and struck towards Su Yun, causing a golden sword chi to explode out from the sword and fly towards Su Yun. However, before the sword chi could even get close to Su Yun, it exploded on its own, and a circle of terrifying sword chi ripples spread out in all directions, affecting all the surrounding spirit cultivator, making it difficult for them to advance. "Sword King, what are you doing?" Seeing that this attack had actually forced everyone to stop moving forward, someone immediately questioned. "What do you mean?" The Sword King snorted, turned his head and stared at the man, shouting, "What's with your attitude? Is he talking to me? Are you provoking me?" That person was obviously caught off guard. He did not expect this guy to have such a big reaction. Although the Sword Lord's cultivation was not the strongest here, he had brought so many experts from the Cloud Heavenly Palace with him. With so many people, this person naturally did not dare to provoke him. Furthermore, taking back the clear sky holy robe was the most important task right now. He did not want to get entangled with the Sword Lord, so he said, "I won't talk to you anymore. Now that the clear sky holy robe has been taken by the thief, I'll talk to you after I take back the clear sky holy robe." With that, the man spun and was about to rush towards Su Yun. But just as he stood up, he was intercepted by the Sword Lord in a flash. "From your words, you seem to be extremely dissatisfied with me?" "Humph, I, the Sword Lord, am a person who will take revenge and complain. Since you are dissatisfied with me, then let's settle this now." With that, the Sword Lord ignored the chaos around him and directly attacked that person. That person was shocked and immediately dodged the Sword Lord's sword. The long sword in the Sword Lord's hand released a golden light, and a large amount of golden sword chi shot out like the sun, flying in all directions. Every time he brandished his sword, a terrifying explosion would occur, and the shock wave would send a large number of spirit cultivator flying. Its power was extremely terrifying. That person was infuriated and roared, "Sword Lord, do you still want the clear sky holy robe? What the hell are you doing? I'll kill you!" The Sword Lord snorted and attacked again. He was truly overbearing. "Damn it! Don't think I'm afraid of you." That person was forced into a corner. "Brother Lu, I'll lend you a hand. People of the Cloud Heavenly Palace, aren't you being too arrogant? Are you trying to bully us with your numbers? I've long since disliked you guys." Some of the people who had a good relationship with the spirit cultivator rushed over and started to fight with the Cloud Heavenly Palace. The two sides started to fight like glue. The battle began, and the scene became more and more chaotic. However, the Sword Lord's main goal was not to kill that person, but to continuously use the surrounding profound technique and randomly attack, causing the already chaotic scene to become like a pool of muddy water. Seeing that, Su Yun did not dare waste any time. He immediately threw the Death Sword into the air, stepped on the Death Sword, held the Imperial equipment in his hand, and activated all of the profound chi to escape out of the mighty Sword Valley, leaving Devil Bone Giant and the Sword Sovereign to cover for him. Su Yun walked extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the edge of the mighty Sword Valley. The spirit cultivator with low cultivation did not even have time to react before Su Yun rushed over. Only a few powerful existences approached them. These people's cultivation were extremely high and their speed was not slow either. Among them, there were experts from the heroic sword list. Everyone dispersed and rushed towards Su Yun in several directions, wanting to completely surround him. If you want to obtain the clear sky holy robe, then rely on your own strength to act. What's the point of using such a despicable method? A man in a red robe rushed over with a sword that was as clear as water. He shouted coldly as he stabbed forward. He was like a rainbow piercing through the sun, unstoppable. Su Yun activated the Imperial equipment and activated his defense. When the sword stabbed into his body, his entire body was sent flying by the force of the sword and fell onto a mountain not far away. The matter is urgent and there is no other way. If it was possible, I wouldn't want to do this, but I have no other choice. Today, I must take away the clear sky holy robe. Su Yun stood up, holding onto the Imperial equipment tightly. He stared at the large number of experts rushing towards him, and said, "Even if I offend the entire sword world, even if I become enemies with the entire sword world, I will not let go." As his voice fell, he roared, and a burst of devil chi soared into the sky. His eyes turned blood-red, as if some strange power had shot out from his body into the sky and scattered in all directions. Howl! A melodious roar resounded throughout the entire mighty Sword Valley. Immediately after, an incomparably huge and terrifying giant that seemed to be able to support the sky appeared in the center of the mighty Sword Valley. This giant was abnormally large. Its body was like a continent, its arms were like a mountain range, its head was like the sun and moon, and its legs were like the pillars of the heavens. The entire mighty Sword Valley was like a ravine beneath its feet. Seeing that, countless spirit cultivators' hearts jumped. Devil Bone Spirit. The red-robed man's expression changed slightly, but he couldn't worry too much about it at the moment. He approached Su Yun, his finger moved slightly, and a green light appeared between his fingers. This light seemed to contain an extremely terrifying corrosive aura, and actually corroded all of the profound chi and devil chi that Su Yun's entire body was emitting. The chi barrier released by the 7th-tier Imperial equipment also suffered an unprecedented attack, and quickly became thinner and dimmer. The destruction caused by the green light was comparable to the attack of a second-stage Spirit Emperor. Seeing that, Su Yun frowned. He did not continue to run. Although his speed was very fast, the other party had too many people and countless magic treasures. Blindly running like this was not a solution. Since he couldn't escape, then he might as well follow his own plan. He took a deep breath and picked up the clear sky holy robe. His eyes carefully sized up this treasure robe. Following that, he took out a strange stone from his storage ring. It was a stone obtained from the evil sword forest. It was a beautiful stone. When the stone appeared, the clear sky holy robe immediately released a burst of 7-colored light, like a colorful sun. It emitted a dazzling light in all directions. The red-robed man stopped. The experts that were rushing towards Su Yun also stopped. Everyone stared blankly at the divine stone, watching it slowly move towards the clear sky holy robe. For some reason, everyone had the urge to bow down and worship it. Clear sky stone? It's the clear sky stone. The mighty Sword Valley Lord who had escaped from the Devil Bone Spirit and was rushing over looked over. When he saw the stone in Su Yun's hand, he immediately shouted out loud, "Valley Master! The divine stone is in that person's hands. He's finally appeared. The person who stole the divine stone and killed the young master must be this person. Valley Master, let's do it." The eyes of the people from the mighty Sword Valley turned red as they shouted excitedly and angrily. The mighty Sword Valley Lord had also lost his mind at the moment. He stared at Su Yun and gasped for breath. Everything was as Su Yun had thought. The reason why he held this hero's duel of the sword was to lure out the person who stole the divine stone. Without the divine stone, the power of the clear sky holy robe would be greatly reduced, and without the clear sky holy robe, the clear sky stone would only be a stone of some use, unable to unleash much power. Therefore, the person who stole the divine stone would definitely come. And the person the mighty Sword Valley Lord was waiting for was the person who stole the divine stone. "Release the signal." The head of the mighty Sword Valley growled. "Yes, sir." As the sound of his voice faded, a blue light shot into the sky and exploded, spitting out countless amounts of thick fog that covered the entire sky like clouds. Whiz! 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 In almost an instant, countless fully armed people from the mighty Sword Valley rushed out from all around the mighty Sword Valley. Upon closer inspection, tens of thousands of people covered the sky and covered the earth. They were all rushing towards this place with murderous intent, like hungry wild beasts. The sudden appearance of so many people from the mighty Sword Valley had truly frightened the spirit cultivator that came from all over the place. These people had been arranged beforehand. The head of the mighty Sword Valley raised his sword and shouted, "Everyone, do not panic. For such a thief to appear in this hero's duel of the sword, it is not what you and I wish for. I hereby announce that the hero's duel of the sword will temporarily stop." With that, the head of the mighty Sword Valley pointed his sword at Su Yun and shouted, "Capture this person and take back the clear sky holy robe and divine stone." "Yes, sir." 10,000 people roared and moved together, crashing towards Su Yun like raindrops. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.